All right. Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining us today. It's actually, why not? It's 9 a.m. here, so I'm drinking my coffee with this guy
Ah,
on it. So,
nice. Heard of him. Heard of him.
I've heard of this guy, Mark's book previews or something like that. Anyway, good channel. Um, Mike, thanks for joining me, man. This is a long time coming.
Mm.
Very excited to talk, very excited to hang out. And yeah, anything you want to say to kick us off? You want to introduce introduce yourself?
Thanks a ton for having me.
Yeah.
I've been quite jealous, when you have everybody else on. I'm like, he never asked me. What's going on? Is it me? Is it me? It might be me.
Oh, Michael.
I understand.
Michael.
You have
It's not you.
scheduling, and we try to stick by it as book readers. And
Yeah.
I think when it comes, we quit a little bit, especially I know us both working in somewhat of finance. I feel like we do everything by a schedule and we stick to it. People are like, hey, just do what you want. And it's like, we're not wired that way.
No,
so I understand. Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. And I want to apologize to everybody and you. We had planned this for a while and I got very sick. My wife and I she got sick. A few days later, I got sick. Not really sure what happened. It wasn't the plague or whatever, but it was just a really bad stomach flu and it knocked me down for a few days and I was so disheartened we couldn't do this, but I appreciate you rescheduling because like you said, it's busy and we have a lot of things slotted in. We try and follow as much as we can. So it's cool that you're able to do it. So I appreciate it.
Of course, I want to listen to you hack and wheeze all over a microphone.
It wasn't even that. I mean, I wasn't great, I'll be honest, but it was really just nauseous and tired. And I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have been myself. So
man, I'll take coughing and sneezing all day over nausea. Nausea's
it's
the
true.
worst.
It's true.
You can't lay down. You can't do anything. It sucks.
You can't get comfortable. My wife, I thought it was food poisoning. So yeah,
I had the virus and shall not be named twice.
Yeah.
And I would take that a third time before taking food poisoning again, man. Food poisoning it's
the worst.
You're sleeping in the bathroom. It sucks.
There's two things I've experienced that I would not wish on my worst enemy, and that is food poisoning and seasickness, like really bad seasickness on the worst kind of boat. I would rather be dead.
We went deep sea fishing with the company I worked for before this one time. I thought I'll be fine. Let's take some of that Dramamine stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I was not okay.
Brutal.
And they're like, come out here and shotgun a beer with me. So like, no.
It's brutal. You go green and you just can't. It's brutal. Thanks for joining us, guys. A lot of people in the chat, all the usual suspects and more. So we appreciate it. But yeah, man. So how are things going? What's going on? Let's start with the book stuff, because I feel like a lot of the people in the comments read books. What are you reading, man?
Well, I started reading, hang on, I got it here. I started reading Bloodsong, and the thing is, like, nothing wrong with it. Nobody freak out. It's just after you read something as heavy as I just read with Darkness That Comes Before, I was like, maybe I should read something else besides fantasy for a moment. So I went back to like Brady Hendrix, and it's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. It's got a real funny name.
I saw you just posted that one. Have you made a dent in that one yet or not?
Yeah. About each. The thing about horror books as opposed to fantasy books is you can get through about a quarter of it in one sitting. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I read about a quarter of it last night before bed. It's one of those things that I feel like I want to strangle the protagonist sometimes. But I feel like that's what a horror story dictates. Like, what are you thinking?
100%.
What are you doing? There's all these red flags. If you don't believe in vampires, that's a serial killer red flag. What are you doing? But it's good so far.
Yeah. He was the one that did How to Sell a Haunted House, right? Or no? Or what is that called?
I think it is. I have that
Brady
horror
Hendrix?
store, and I already did My Best Friend's Exorcism, which was great. And that's why I'm reading more. But I think
we watched that was a Netflix that was in that movie, right? They did a movie on that one.
Mm-hmm.
That was not bad. I watched it actually, and it made me want to read the book actually. So
yeah. John's a big fan. He's been pushing me towards that a lot.
Yeah. A lot of people know Grady Hendrix. I haven't read him yet, I don't think.
So what about during your hiatus? Did you read during your hiatus for Booktube? Were you still reading?
It's really funny, and I talked a little bit about this video that I put out that got a little bit of interesting traction, not in the form of views, but in some responses. I did a quick video on like the dark side of Booktube, and I actually didn't know that Johan put out a video with sort of a similar title. And in my thumbnail, I call it Dark Sided Book. And I probably should have Googled it first or put it in the search bar, because it turns out Johan did that video. And I vaguely remember it. So maybe it was a subconscious thing where I'm like, hey, I should talk about this. But at the end of the day, the sentiment of the video was like, look, everything takes time. It depends what you want out of it, depends what you put into it. And don't let the pressure get to you. Just like have fun. Everything is supposed to be fun, right? And so that was the sentiment of the video. And I talked a little bit in that video about kind of what happened. And it's not what happened actually, but in the form of did I read during my hiatus and that kind of thing. And actually it was interesting because I had all this extra time to read, but I found that I wasn't reading as much. And I think the reason why is because not being part of the community and not having people to talk to, not having a reason to actively read and take notes and want to discuss, it just kind of, I didn't read as much. I read a little bit, but not nearly as much as I do when I'm here, part of the community, wanting to chat with people like you,
Right.
which is ironic because by doing this, I have much less time to read, but I find that I read more doing that. So I don't know. It's funny.
I think so too. If I just stopped doing this tomorrow, I was like, would I still be reading as much? I feel like yes, because it's still my favorite hobby, not named the
like
NFL.
you'll never not stop. Like you'll never
Yeah.
stop, right? But like,
But I
yeah.
think the thing is, I wouldn't get as many recommendations. I wouldn't have near as much FOMO, when
Yes.
you, Philip, and everybody else are reading this book and carrying on about how great it is. And I'm like, well, damn it, I've already kind of locked myself into something. I think it would be I probably wouldn't do it at the same clip, but I wouldn't be starting as many new series. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same for me. One thing you said is the recommendations. It's almost it makes your head spin how many books are thrown at you, how many recommendations. You look at your bookshelf, how many of them you've read, how many of them you haven't. The FOMO kicks in and you're like, man, when you take a step away, you don't really hear about it too much. So you kind of just read what you feel like at your own pace. Here, there's stuff thrown at you all the time. You see people reading stuff and you want to hop on everything. That actually is a good segue to a question that I had, because
Sure.
I don't know if you're a robot or what, but I know you're a family man, you have kids, you're a husband, you work in finance, which I know is not the easiest of jobs.
Mm.
How, and here's the thing, I'm so impressed with you because you know a lot about everything. I know a little bit about everything and I take pride in that. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades that way, but you know so much intimately about music, about sports, about books, and everything, video games. I see you talk about everything. How the hell do you have time? And are you a clone?
No, I think I think just over the course of life, I've had several hobbies. I'm a collector. Like I said, I collect books, I collect albums, I collect sneakers. It's just something I've always kind of done. And originally I wanted to go to school to study music theory. I wanted to be like a choir teacher. That's kind of what I wanted to do.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So I was always been enamored with music, just learning more and more. So you get those people all the time that would be like, hey, what kind of music do you listen to? They'd be like, oh, I listen to everything. They don't mean it. I did mean it up until recently. I say about the last 5-6 years, I've turned to my parents because everything new sounds like shit. So that's that. It happens to all of us.
Isn't that funny how it happens? Yeah.
It'll happen to everybody. All of you listening, it'll happen eventually. But just when I really get into something, I really dive all in on it. Obviously, like I said, my favorite hobby that's not reading is American football. So I could tell you just about everything about the NFL. Except unless we're on a live stream and I'm doing a live stream on my channel about NFL and I start forgetting players' names, that's a lot of fun. But I have to make room for all those fantasy names. That's just kind of how it works. But I think it's just when I dive into a hobby, I've always been an introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert. My wife tells me, because I will always choose to stay home and watch a movie, listen to music, read a book, watch a football game. Yeah. But if I do go out, I am a social butterfly. It's just kind of the way that I am. But I'll always choose to stay home and do.
I think I'm the same way. When I go out, I enjoy it. It's not an act. I'm very much out there. I prefer to stay home though, to be honest. Like if you gave me the choice, party or hang out at home and read a book, like I'm usually the homebody for sure. So
like we just did that thing with Ryan Cahill and Christopher Rocchio in Dallas.
That's cool.
Look, as amazing as it was, I got home. I was so exhausted. I don't want to talk to anybody for 5 days. I want to stay
recover
home for the rest of my vacation. Yeah, because it was just like it's so it was amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I love everybody I met and all that stuff, but it was just like I'm ready to just sit back and relax for a few days. I think.
I know exactly how you feel. Well, so like, how do you? I'd like to know how you stick to your schedule, because you have a lot of passions, you have a lot of hobbies, you fit everything, but then do you have a schedule? You were talking to Cahill and Rockio about, do they, like on that video, do they set aside time to read? Do they have a schedule? Do they need a certain amount of pages a day and whatever? Seems like both of them adhere to that philosophy. So like, do you say, I got to make this many, whatever, I got to sit down and record these many videos? Like, how do you fit everything? Or even pages? Do you got to read X amount a day? Do you have a goal that way? Like,
No, I mean, when you have two young kids, it just that plan, they don't care how much you're planning. It really just kind of always depends on how they go, or hey, is my wife feeling neglected? Hey, let me make sure that I'm taking care of the family life first. That's always something. But with me, the difference there between me and Ryan and Christopher is that's their job. This is not my job. So it's like, hey, I don't like telling my viewers I'm going to do this, and then I don't. Like I think 2 weeks ago, I said I was going to make that 5-star Clonkers books. And I haven't made it yet because of that Dallas trip and whatever. And I was like, I know in the end it don't matter, but I don't like telling people I'm going to do something that I don't do. So it's like that. I have that work ethic where I will be like, no, I got to get out 3 videos this week. That's just kind of the way that I am.
Yeah.
But as far as like reading and stuff, I read hardly anything in the past week, and I'm on vacation this week because I've had so much going on this week. So it's to me, it's just you never want to force it. Again, it's my favorite hobby. It's what I like to do. But I've never, ever just say, well, I've got to make sure I read 120 pages a day. I don't think that's ever happened, unless it was like for a review copy or something like
you
that.
need to. Yeah.
I remember I had to finish reading the most recent Dresden Files book. That's how long ago it was. And in like 24 hours. And I did it, because I had a deadline I had to hit. But no, for the most part, keeping this not a job allows me to kind of have wiggle room in that regard.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because it's a slippery slope because you've grown so much to the point where a lot of people could do this as maybe a part-time job or very much, start to shift the focus that way. And it's interesting you say that because I have a friend of mine, I enjoy fishing a lot. And I have a friend of mine who's an avid fisherman, and he's so good that he ended up starting work as an outfitter and a guide. And he's a fishing guide now, and he takes people out fishing and all that stuff. And he said, it's tough, like a mechanic. The last thing you want to do after a long day of work, come home, work on your own car, right? Like it's starting to become kind of a grind. And he's like, how do I get that joy again when your hobby and your passion turns into your job? That must be really tricky. I don't have that luxury. A lot of my hobbies are my hobbies because they're just whatever, and they cost a lot more money than they would ever make me, like fishing and like all those things. But yeah, I don't know. It's a slippery slope. So it's tough because sometimes you feel compelled to read things that you don't necessarily want to read, or you need to read a review copy, and it turns into sort of homework, right? Or you have a read along. I've started a read along and I bailed on my own read along. I couldn't, like
that's why I
it
stopped
happens.
doing those at the Codex Alera. I planned it out for 6 months and then I bailed in book 2. I felt really bad.
I
I'm
remember.
not gonna do that anymore. Now I'll just do like, hey, I'm reading this. If you want to read along with me, you can.
Go for it. Yeah.
I always joke, I'd be nice if someone would pay me just to read books, then I get to read everything I like. But then I feel like, okay, well, if this actually became a job, I don't know, it might take the fun out of it. So for me, no, I like having my real job that I went to school for. So when people are like, hey, would you ever think about doing this full time? No. And it's not just because of the risk involved, because this YouTube bubble could pop any day, and people who depend on that for a lot.
That's a good point.
I think that's great, but also I feel like I wouldn't be able to do what I do now, which is do what my viewers, what I want and what my viewers want. I would have to do things that are, for lack of a better phrase, for the stuff that I know is going to drive traffic and things like that, and to take on a lot more sponsors that I probably won't want to take on to. And I don't want to do that. I like to keep this as. It sounds weird, and people think that, oh, Mike, your channel's so big. But I always say, like, I like to think of myself as the everyman's channel because I don't take a lot of sponsors. I talk about what I get feedback on that people want me to talk about, and I like to make people feel included. So
yeah, I think you do a good job that way. To be honest, it's always felt very authentic, actually, from the get go. I mean, I followed you for a minute now, actually, and it's always sort of felt the same. It's never changed.
I know. Remember when you sent me that right there?
I do. And
Society,
what came up? What came up actually is I mean, it's just a way to give back, because I've been watching your videos for so long, and it's like, I know the work that goes into this, right? So it was a way for people to, and you get sent stuff all the time. We all appreciate what you do. But what came up on my Instagram was the rest of the Dune folios. And I was like, the other 2 and the first 3. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like if I could only afford to send him the rest. I don't know if you have the rest. And I was just like, oh man, now
It's
I
like
feel
kind
pressure
of
to
a
complete the
not really
set.
a partnership, but Folio Society is working with me a little bit, so
Yeah,
they're sending me Children of Doom, which I'm super excited for. But I was like,
amazing.
damn it, I have to spring for Doom Messiah now because I don't
You
have
have
that
to
one.
complete it. Yeah, exactly.
I can't have it
Exactly.
incomplete, even though I've got like 9 copies of every Doom book, you know. But hey, who doesn't need 10, right?
Of
We as
course.
collectors, who doesn't need number 10? You know?
You know, Dune, it's so interesting because I read Dune and I've only read the first one. I have, you know, these, whatever copies those are, the special editions. There's the
Yeah,
orange one and the other two. They're
deluxe.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
I love those.
yeah,
I haven't read the other two yet, and I think I'll probably stop there. But you've talked about Dune a lot on your channel, but give us just a quick little like couple sentence, like what's the hook? Like why do you like Dune so much? Is it because it affected you so much, or is there something
yeah.
inherent in the
It
book that
hit me at
you
an
love?
impressionable age. I think you know
Right.
we had when I was 15, my mom's sister was dying of cancer, and she wanted to move closer out here to be with her. So I, at 15 years old, had to move out here where I knew absolutely no one. Came from a dysfunctional family, so you know, self confidence, self esteem, all that stuff is in the toilet. And I think just seeing someone like Paul, same age as me, obviously not exactly the same. I wasn't exactly royalty or anything like that, you know. But just seeing that, overcoming those fears, and kind of just, it was one of those things that just hit me at the right time. That's why I always tell people about Dune is if it hits you at just the right time, it will click with you so much that it will just like
Yeah.
form your entire worldview. And
Yeah.
it sounds hyperbolic to say that, but I was like, I don't. There's still so many teachings about those books. And in today's landscape where you can get in trouble for saying anything, I'll just make sure I'm just like, I'm quoting Frank Herbert when I say this, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so it's things that just kind of formed my the way that I look at the world, and opened my third eye, so to speak. So I know it's not going to hit everybody that same way. And that's why for the longest time I put off doing a why you should read Dune, because I feel like it's not a book that's going to work for everybody. And you
No,
know, I
it
mean,
won't.
people will comment on it. Hey, Mike, I'm so sorry. I tried Dune, it just went for me. You don't have to apologize for me. I
Yeah.
expect it not to work for more people than it works for, but
Yeah.
it'll always be special to me.
Do you think Stephen King is another author that hits you at the right time, that where you've just kind of grown with him a little bit? But
You know, believe it or not, I think I'm relating to a lot of Stephen's books more as an
more
adult
now,
than I did. Like when I was a
it's
teenager,
funny.
it was just like he was taboo. You know, I was raised in a Pentecostal household where Stephen King was the devil, so we had to do it like on the secret. You know, like with our rock
Yeah.
albums, we had to hide our rock albums and Beach Boys vinyl covers. But it was like I liked it because, you know, it was taboo, and I wanted to be
Yeah.
scared, and I got those
Totally.
things. And then I started rereading them as an adult, and I'm like, I'm relating with the adult characters so much now, and they're hitting you in such a different way, I think. So I actually think it's
Yeah.
as an adult his books hit harder.
Yeah, I'm in. It's funny because I never really read a lot of King when I was younger. I'll be honest. I tried the odd book when I was. I think I tried Salem's Lot when I was young, and then what was another one?
Pet Cemetery was the popular one with the kids. Yeah.
Pet Cemetery. I didn't read until he was. That was like the second book I read by him, and it's still one of my favorites. Maybe it is my. I mean, I go between that and it 11/22/63. Like those are kind of my three.
All great picks.
I think it was The Stand that I started, and embarrassingly I didn't finish. But yeah, it's funny. I don't think I would have clicked with him as much then as I do now. I just latch on to different parts of his story, different parts of his characters now, and I'm loving King now in my 30s. So
Yeah.
yeah,
think that
I
would
don't
go
know.
up. I think it's funny that John said having the voice in high school would have been awesome. You're right. I would have gotten
Oh,
out of a
dude,
lot of trouble of having the voice in high school. Give me an
100%.
A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Totally. Yeah, yeah. I'm reading right now for the first time.
I saw. I'm excited for you,
Way of
man.
Kings.
Because that's also are you gonna speed run them up to the new
I'm
one?
I wasn't planning on it, but now that I'm into the Way of Kings, like I want to roll through them. Like I'm
So yeah, if
really
you're clicking with
enjoying them.
Way of Kings, you're clicking early. I think you're gonna love the series because
Yeah,
it starts so slow, and it is a
yeah,
slow burn. And I always tell people when they're getting into it that Brandon Sanderson is the type of reader that, or I'm sorry, the type of writer that he rewards his readers if you're just patient with them. The
yeah.
second half of that book is going to blow you away. And book 2 is still my favorite Brandon Sanderson book in
That's what
that
I
he's written,
hear.
and it's so good.
Really. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. I'm really enjoying it. It's not as slow as I would have thought. I mean, yes, it's slow. We're bouncing around between some characters and stuff, and things are evolving. But I guess I read that first half quick enough. I'm bouncing between a couple other books, and I'm in the last, I would say, third right now, and things are ramping up. So I'm appreciating it. Yeah.
I remember. Be careful though, because I remember when I did discover. So I read Mistborn, and I decided to read that because Oathbringer was about to come out, and I read Way of Kings and Words of Radiance in like 2 weeks. And these are monster books, you know. And then and then I got Oathbringer, and I read about halfway through. I was like, I can't, need a break, you know. So it's hard. So if you're gonna do, I say, well, you know, do one. I guess we're getting pretty close here. One per month, I guess.
That's what my plan was. The problem is, I still, now we're well into September. I'm still reading Way of Kings. You know, I need to read the rest of them. But what's the next one?
There's lots of months left. You're almost done. Yeah, you'll fly through Words of Radiance, though, man. It's so good.
Words of Radiance. That's right. I don't know. We'll see. I do tend to get not burnt out. I do tend to get kind of bored. Like I need to change things up sometimes. It's really hard for me to speed run.
Great. I feel like you do need a break from it. You need a different world sometimes. Like when I first started the channel, I was doing Wheel of Time. There were people that were upset that I wasn't just going to fly through all 14 in a row. And I was like, I don't want to burn myself out on it, you know. So I'm not going to do that, because no matter how much you're enjoying something, you kind of need to visit a different world once in a while. At least I have always felt like that.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
I do too. You know what I read off your recommendation, and a lot of other people's too, but you really put it to the forefront, is We Are the Dead. I just finished We Are the Dead last month, and I have I have the trilogy, and I have a couple signed copies because he lives in Vancouver, he's local to me. He's about 40 minutes away.
A really great guy. Really
great. And so I've been wanting to read those forever, and I've recommended them now a little bit since reading We Are the Dead, because I feel like it'll click with a lot of people. I think it's going to be what a lot of people are looking for in that type of book. And it was awesome. I really enjoyed it, for sure. So I actually have a review that I'm going to edit and put out, because I just had a lot to say about that one. I like that one.
Do you record several videos and then edit them slowly, or do you just one at a time?
No, I get drained. Like when I record a video and I'm done, I'm like, whew, God damn, that was it. You know, it's really hard for me to bang out 2 videos or 3. I know a lot of people batch record videos. If it's an easy one, like if I do a quick little book haul or maybe a wrap up, I might just simply do my TBR as well or something, whatever, got all the books out. But no, I can't. What you'll find is that I end up with a couple recorded videos that I'm late to edit because I'm kind of lazy that way. I'm like, I enjoy editing. I like to get kind of flashy with it sometimes and try and experiment. That's part of the process I enjoy, more than sitting down and talking. But then it's just so hard to keep up with that. Like you said, like life and work and all that stuff, you find that you end up having, books or videos that are just sitting on the computer waiting for you to edit. So that's kind of,
I'm always afraid, like, what if my computer crashes or something after those videos I've already recorded? You know,
yeah. What if you lose them all?
I do try to record like a couple in a week, because it's so hard to record a video and edit it and upload it after work, because it's on a work night. Yeah. It's just not possible, really. So I try to do it on the weekend, but I always do my update live, because it's like that's got to be, you know, what I'm doing like right this second. It's got to be right then. And I've had a lot of people say, hey, I wish you could get those back on Fridays. It's like, it's just made this a weeknights. It just becomes so hard to do that. So I was like, that's why those are fellow Saturday and Sunday, because it's just weeknights. Like, I don't talk much about my actual career on the channel. It's just like, I did get like I've gotten 2 promotions since I've been with this company. And it's like, wow, those hours had to go somewhere, you know? And it's just like, it does take a little bit more of a toll on you. And I'm thankful. I enjoy what I do. Of course, don't get me wrong. It's just like, that's when I was like, was I really putting out 4 or 5 videos a week for 4 years? Because now I'm like 3 videos a week seems like a lot. So
I want to put a pin in that one, because I want to ask you a couple things about that. But first, I want to say, let me see if I can pop this up. Brian, I appreciate that, man. Before you answer the question, this is the first, what do you call these? Super chats? This is the first one I've ever got. Brian just made my whole life. I'm like, I always see these pop up. I used to send them out here and there.
He got to spend money on Vikings tickets this year, so he's got a little extra cash, I think.
So yeah, man. So question: best metal band? Is it Judas?
Oh, he's asking me what's the best metal band?
Asking you.
Well, I mean, that's a damn good pick. With me for years, it always just kind of flew between Metallica, Iron Maiden, and Judas Priest. But I was like, the fact that Priest is still putting out brand new albums and they still kick ass is just like amazing to me. So that's why I've been leaning towards that since probably this century. That's how old I am. But I would have never guessed at this age that I am that Judas Priest would still be putting out new albums. And they'd be good, you know. So there's that. But yes,
that's awesome. So when do you listen to music? Like, do you have a commute to work? Like, dude,
well, I don't
do so much stuff
like you guys. So we are allowed to use headphones at my office.
Okay.
Try not to very much because, you know, I'm always talking to people. But
Yes.
because I just blah 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 blah. That's just what I do. But
Yeah.
I will listen at work if I don't listen to like some podcasts and stuff like that. But yeah, usually work. The drive to work's only about 40 minutes, so
Yeah.
it's not too much. And I usually listen to like sports radio for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then do something at home,
I don't
like
know how you keep
when
up.
I'm
Yeah.
editing and things like that, or when I'm just cleaning up around the house. I'll always have music on. Like my wife's like, "Can you do anything without music?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can record my videos without music." It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
she doesn't
Do
find
you
that funny.
you don't read with music, right? You don't put like a little low soundtrack in there sometimes, little
I do both.
ambiance. Yeah.
I do both. Like sometimes if like I love the suburbs. Don't get me wrong. I love living in the suburbs. It's great. Don't get me wrong, except that everybody parks on the street and everybody's dogs are loud. And so some days where it's like, there's weed eaters going on and there's dogs barking and there's
Oh
kids
man.
playing the shop. I'm like, all right, I got to put some music on or headphones on, something like that. But otherwise, like I'm so used to reading a size because when I get the most reading done is after my wife goes to sleep at night and I read on my Kindle. That's when I get the
Right.
most done. And obviously, that's in the silence. So silence or like soundtracks, nothing with words. Nothing with
No,
words.
I've recently started listening to music. I never could. I was always a read in silence kind of guy, but as I read Stormlight, I'm listening to a very low like Spotify playlist. It's actually a Stormlight archive playlist and it just has a bunch of, fantasy stuff, right?
Mm,
Very,
nice.
very low, and sometimes the music builds up just at the right time and it just all works and it makes everything so cinematic. It's super fun actually. So not all the time, but sometimes I do. Yeah.
I had that with Red Rising. I was listening to the Mass Effect soundtrack, and I was like, I just want to go blow some shit up, man.
Yeah. You're a Nightwish fan too, actually, right? Quite a big one, I think.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
actually pen
Yeah.
pals with the founder and creator of that band, so it's
That's pretty
really really
cool.
rad. He watches the channel.
How did he find? Yeah, he found you, right? Or he sent you something
Yeah,
because he watched you.
he sent me a letter just saying, Merry Christmas and how much he really did appreciate the channel. And I was like, this is fake, right? Somebody knows I'm a Nightwish fan. And like after I thanked him, he's like, I had no idea you even liked the band. That's even better, Now
Getting punked. Yeah.
now all the time we just email back and forth about books and music and stuff. It's actually kind of surreal. That's a band I've been listening to for like 20 plus years,
Yeah. Yeah. Ambient music. Yeah.
It's not shocking to me that the guys in Nightwish would be fantasy readers, though. If you listen to
Makes sense. It makes sense. And actually, I checked him out when you mentioned him, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see the correlation here for sure. I wanted to go back to what you said about recording videos and stuff.
Sure. Sure.
What's the sweet spot, man? Like, I'll be honest. Every now and then, I'll see a new channel I'm following or whatever, and they're pumping out videos in a way that makes me very impressed and almost envious, right? But then I start to think like maybe it's too much too quickly. Like, what's the sweet spot? If you start to see videos every single day from your favorite booktube, are you going to watch all of them? Is it 2 a week? Is it 3 a week? Do you want to make them starve for something? Do you want to do just 1 a week?
That was one of the things I when I said I wanted to go, not just because of time, but I said I want to go down to 3 videos a week because I said I thought I was just oversaturating. I was giving people too much, and I know that everybody has time to watch everything. I mean, there are those people who are like, I'm everything you put out, it's great, thank you so much, and I'm glad I can give people that joy. But it's just like I look at some channels that are like similar size to mine. And every video they put out are 30, 40,000 views. I'm lucky if I get 10,000 views, and I was like, I wonder if it's just because I just put out too much.
Right.
So I try to get it down to like 2 original videos a week and just my weekly update. It's kind of what I kind of try to do. But I will sometimes be like, well, maybe I should just go down to 1 video a week like all these other channels do. And I'm like, I fear I'll fall out of the algorithm if I do that. I don't know. I don't know how these things work, but it's I don't know. It's just I have so much to say. Like I said, I have more ideas than time most of the time. So creating content is a problem. Sometimes finding content that everybody likes and wants. That's the problem, because
you do want to give the people what they want for sure.
Yeah, but you got ISSIs and they're all there for different things. Like some people found the
True.
channel when I was reviewing Berserk, so they just wanted me to do manga. Some people like just the Stephen King stuff. Some people like just the fantasy stuff. My most popular video is a horror video, so horror people come here and they're like, "Why don't you talk about horror at all?"
Like your top 10 horror or something, right? Yeah.
So it's quite a melting pot of viewer likes on the channel, and I appreciate that, but it makes it hard to like coalesce around one thing. That can be a people pleaser for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you are making people spend an awful lot of money on books, so people are finding stuff to enjoy.
So many people this week, and they were like,
damn you, Mike. Yeah.
I bought so many books because, I'm like, I just kept starting saying, man, I love spending other people's money. Just, be responsible, please. Don't like choose it over feeding your kids or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's tough. I mentioned in that video I made about, the fun and frustration around booktube and stuff, and it's tough because like there's this FOMO around getting all these new releases. You look at your shelves, all the books that you haven't read. Look behind you, Mike. I mean, goddamn, like how do you ever have an existential crisis when you go, because you're what, 60, 65 years old around, and you
46.
think,
Yeah.
okay, and you think same, and you think, how much time do I really have left, and how many of these are my kids going to have to read for me? Do you ever have that?
Yeah, I all the time. And we were talking earlier about like FOMO, things like that. I just keep meeting more and more authors. And over the weekend, hanging out with Ryan Cahill kept talking about this author, Philip Quantrell. And I was like, this book sounds really awesome. And I saw he just put out a new book. And one of my patrons was talking about it. I was just like, I've heard a lot of things about it. And Philip actually dropped me a message. He's like, hey, if you want me to send you some of the books, please let me. I was like, sure. Okay.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
he was just like so nice. And we were talking in messages about, being a dad and things like that.
Yeah.
That's the cheat sheet, guys. You talk to me like on a personal level and not
Yeah.
just read my book. It makes me want to actually give yourself a try. Like Christopher Rocky and I talked about Dune for 6 weeks before I picked up one of his books. It's just, I like building those relationships, but you meet so many more new people, and some of them are authors, and it's just like, okay, well, now I want to read this guy's books too. And I've gotten to the point where I've tried to start telling people like, look, if you want to send me your book, I appreciate it. The chances are pretty likely I will never be able to read them, like ever. Ever. I may be reading 3 or 4 books a month right now because I do have a full-time job. I do have a family and stuff. And it's not like fantasy books are short. But yeah, I'll look around the room and be like, I don't have enough time left, unless I really live long after retirement, which I hope I get to have. So it I would say a crisis, but I will just be like, just going to have to accept that you just can't read everything, sadly.
Yeah. Well, look, the channel's blown up enough. Can't you just retire now? Like,
the thing is, like, people think, oh, you got it made. You're probably making so much money. Dude, you guys have no idea. It's why I appreciate patrons so much.
Yeah. It's funny. So when I took a little bit of time off and then came back, and I decided, like when I left, I didn't leave. I didn't go anywhere. I just kind of like took a break for a bit. And as I explained in some videos, I didn't leave from Booktube. I just went towards other things. I had a couple other things that took up a lot of priority.
Yeah, you're not
and
Alex.
My parents,
you didn't just like
no, I
disappear.
didn't. Yeah, no, like my parents got sick, and a few things happened which really took a lot of time and mental capacity. And I shut down the Patreon. I didn't feel like I was able to, add enough value. And yeah, I wanted to. I loved those patron chats, and I loved doing TBR stuff with them and having them pick my books and stuff. And I was enjoying that. And I was really supported, and I felt really grateful. But eventually, I just felt like I couldn't add the value, so I shut that down. And now thinking back, I'm like, the patrons really go a long way in supporting what you do, because even the software, even the editing and the things and the
You're like me, you get hacked, you have to go buy a new computer. I couldn't have done that with my patrons. Yeah,
absolutely. So just a big shout out to people that support channels in various ways and stuff. So yeah, 100%. There was a question here. I forget where it went. Where did it go? Do you watch college football? Now, you probably do. I would suspect that you do. And as a Canadian, what is the obsession with college sports in the States? Is it because it's such a big deal, right, in these communities?
There's two types of football fans. There's the ones who think they prefer college football because it's passionate. It is more passionate. They're not getting paid. And the crowd is completely lit. They're crazy. 70,000 people are going nuts for every single play. So I understand it. Me, I prefer the pros because there's one thing with American football that drives me crazy, and it's when you cannot tackle. And in college football, they can't tackle. So it just raises my blood pressure. My wife doesn't like me yelling at the TV all the time. So I'll kind of wait until, there's a big game like Texas, Georgia coming up here in October. It's like a big one I want to watch. So I'll watch some of the big matchups, but it's not like NFL where it can be the 2 worst teams in the league on a Thursday night. I'll watch it because it's just NFL. But yeah, I think the obsession with college, like I said, like that, either they went there, or they have a kid going there, or it's just it's the regional area. There's some areas where they don't have a pro team. Like look at Alabama and Auburn. That is like a freaking holiday, a very, very dangerous holiday because they will literally stab each other. But because they don't have a pro football team there, so that is their pro.
That's
football
their
team. They treat it like
that. They can't tackle in college football.
They're just not as good. I mean, it's just
okay.
That's why.
Oh, you mean like they can't? Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
No. I mean, like they're not very good at it. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way. Okay.
I was like, they're not allowed to tackle and call.
No,
Why would you
no,
guys
they haven't won
watch that?
flag football yet. No, I just mean like they're really bad at tackling. And for me,
Right.
it was always like as a defense first guy, I
Gotcha.
can't say wrap up. Quit going for the big hit. Wrap him up and get him down. This isn't that hard. So it's just about showing off. It's that old guy thing. Quit showing off. Just do the job right.
Yeah, man.
No style points.
You know,
hey, Viking's here. Hey, Viking. You know, he talked about how you borrowed that video. I borrowed that same video from him. The what's going on with booktubers quitting and YouTubers quitting.
I do remember that. I do remember that.
That was a really great topic. Really, really great topic.
Yeah, it's quite shocking actually. It's quite,
I think people just try to do so much so quick when they first start, and they don't realize how much work goes into it. You know? I think so.
Really, we're all here because we enjoy reading. And I find a lot of people shift to the production side of it, the booktube side, wanting to have these discussions. And then it's at the expense of everything they enjoy about reading and the book community, right? It's a very hard balance to strike for sure. Yeah.
YouTube user.
We have a relative that attends a top NCAA team, and we tend to follow that team for. Yeah. Like you said, it depends on who goes there and how tight you are with that community. That makes sense. We just don't have that here. We also don't really have the college culture.
Is traditional football the biggest thing in Canada?
Yeah, like even we will watch like the NFL. I don't even really watch the CFL, to be honest with you.
No. I mean, so I don't like to say soccer, so I call it traditional football. If I call
traditional
soccer,
football.
I get yelled at. Most of you got to understand. More than half of my audience is outside the state. So when I call it soccer, it doesn't go over well.
So my wife's British, her family's British. So when they say football, it's soccer, 100%. Yeah.
Is that the biggest sport in Canada, or is it like lacrosse?
No, hockey. It's hockey.
100%.
Hockey and lacrosse; those are the ones that people play. Like that's the jam for sure. And part of it comes to I grew up with the NFL. I used to watch football a lot, American football. I should clarify, yeah. But like we don't have an NFL team. We don't have I got to go to Seattle to watch the Seahawks. Like I can't. You know what I mean? Really participate as much. We used to have an NBA team, the Vancouver Grizzlies, if you remember them. That was gangster, but they're gone. Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, it's hard as a Canadian to like enjoy sports like that, to be honest. What sports did you play growing up? Were you a huge baseball? Yeah, that makes sense.
Baseball. I mean, baseball was like everything. I was made varsity as a freshman in high school, so that kind of changed my life a little bit. Yeah. I was a pitcher, but that's why my arm really I can't raise it about much higher than this now because pitching will wear you out. So it was never a thing that I wanted to do like for a job or anything like that or aspirations of anything like that. But yeah, I played baseball. It was weird because it's all about football in Texas, but I was like, I don't like to get hit. So I love to watch football, but I like to play baseball.
Yeah. I never really, baseball's not big here. I'll be on. Actually, it kind of is. Actually. I have a lot of friends that play baseball and watch baseball religiously. So
wait. Yeah. You like video editing? I can't stand it.
Yeah. So I enjoy video editing. The problem is it takes too much time sometimes, and sometimes I can't quite I'm not good at it. I just enjoy it. And so, it takes time, and I'm just like, okay, that didn't really work out how I want to, or I'm going to try and experiment a little bit and add this and whatever. And for me, so here's the deal. The reason why I even have I like hobbies, right? And I liked photography for a really long time and video and stuff. And so I had a decent camera and I kind of figured that out. And then the whole video editing part was a skill that I wanted to learn. Like I had no idea. I didn't know what software to use. So it's just, Booktube was a way for me to sort of integrate other hobbies and kind of learn some skills, and editing was one of them. And I kind of enjoy it. Yeah. Like when I record a video and I finish and I got to go edit it, that's my favorite part, because maybe it's because I'm at the finish line and I'm almost there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe that's why. Right.
Oh yeah. When I do a process or create or export, it's like, yeah, that's fun. Nice. Okay. I'm done.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. We won't get into that.
Right. Uh-oh.
Should I okay. I'll answer this question first, only because I was so heartbroken when I missed the opportunity to buy the Boys Life Suntop edition, to the point where I ordered it from a scalper, and it's in a PO box across the border, and I got to drive an hour to go get it. It's sitting there right now. And I I fell in love with that fucking book, Mike. Like I don't know why, but it just
I
hit
know
me.
why.
Like, sometimes books hit you the right way, the right time. And I just remember crying at the end. What a beautiful story that was. My recommendation, I guess where you might go with this answer too is it depends what you're looking for, and I think you're
Right.
probably
They're
gonna
very
give a
different.
good answer about distinguishing. I preferred Boy's Life, but they're both excellent. Mike, why don't you take it?
Well, I know why you like Boy's Life because there's very few books like that'll take you back to your own childhood and just remember what things were like, especially if you're a little older and you remember those endless summers of riding your bike everywhere kind of thing. It was just that
Yeah,
was it. That was everything.
yeah,
That was such a touching story. Obviously, the coming of age subgenre is my favorite thing in literature. I can't get enough
yeah,
of it. I'll never be able to get enough of it. And I think that was like the first one I found that was able to do it as good as Stephen King. I felt like there were so many who just didn't understand this is how kids talk to each other. You always
yeah,
have these kids that are 12 years old and they're like, are they carrying a thesaurus in their back pocket? No kids talk like this,
yeah,
Now I felt
yeah,
like Stephen was able to grab it, even up to the immature stuff. And I felt
yeah.
like that actually hit it really, really well too. Southern Gothic stuff always clicked for me. What with Swan Song that was different for me is just I don't know. I'm a sucker also for post apocalyptic, and I felt like it was right on par with The Stand, which I think is again one of the best Stephen King books. And where you're saying like I think they're both excellent books. It's like when someone tells me that they think The Stand is better than it. Well, it is my favorite Stephen King book. I'm not going to argue. That's a great pick. So yeah, I think it's if you're wanting like the big epic 900 page quest kind of thing, post-apocalyptic, go with Swan Song. I think this gives all the
Yeah.
same kind of character work. He's a very, very good character writer, and you'll love almost everyone, or love to hate everyone in that book. Boy's Life's a little smaller, a little more focused, and it's a little more
Hmm.
grounded, obviously, in reality. But I feel like he's able to touch on like uncomfortable issues and stuff in that book in a very tasteful way. And it'll definitely probably have you reaching for the Kleenex by the end of the story because it is very touching at the end.
It is. Yeah, and I think my favorite books, right? Storm of Swords and Boy's Life, and I think Boy's Life to the point where I want to reread it again pretty soon, maybe near the end of the year.
What do I tell
But
people? I said
yeah,
that's the best Stephen King book not written by Stephen King I've ever read. Yeah, Boy's
yeah,
Life.
that's a good compliment. And it's
Because
funny, and actually, it's very interesting. Do you think books like that will touch the next generation the way that it touched us? I don't see kids out riding their bikes the way we used to,
right.
and playing in fields and walking down fucking train tracks and like catching frogs in the swamps
When
and
I
shit. Like,
talked about The Body by Steve, which is Stand
yeah,
by Me for people who've only seen the
yeah.
movie.
And
When
I've
I
read
talked
it.
about that
Beautiful.
book,
Yeah,
I said the same thing. I was like, I don't know if that's going to touch modern audiences. And I had a guy in the comments. He's like, I'm 18 and I live in Baghdad, and this book had me in tears. So yes, it will actually reach
really.
people who haven't experienced that. So I think so.
Wow.
I think so. Like I mean, like my oldest kid, he don't even know how to ride a bike, but
Yeah.
he watched Stranger Things and he loved it. He
Right.
loved it. So I feel like there's some things that just transcend all that. They really do. Even if
Yeah.
you, I mean, I think there's books that I've read where stuff I didn't do in my childhood, and I still like, that I really did enjoy that. So I don't think it
Totally.
has to be a I've experienced this in my life. I just think it'll hit extra hard if you've experienced those things in
Yes,
your life.
I think that's a fair way to put it for sure. And Johan, yeah, like he has such good videos. Like the production
Yeah.
quality is so excellent, and that's like if I could do that, I would for sure. I
I wish
love
I
that
had
flashy, engaging.
Johan's ability to come up with topics. He comes up with some great. I was like,
Absolutely,
I never would have thought of
thought
that. That's
provoking.
really, really
Totally.
great. So I try not to borrow too much. I only borrowed the book, the Why Are YouTubers Quitting one, but I made sure I gave lots of credit for it.
How much?
Hey,
How much?
Johan, why is fantasy dying?
Why is fantasy dying? Hey, fantasy's not dying because he just talked to George R. R. Martin the other day. How do you feel
I
about that,
know, man. That's like bucket list stuff. Like I was like,
man?
he said, my video with Ryan and Christopher that I just did, he was like, legendary collab. I was like, dude, please, you were just at Worldcon with like some of my favorite authors ever.
Yeah, man.
I wish that I
Crazy,
could be
right?
on that level. I was so much FOMO with Worldcon. Jesus.
Dude, yeah, we yeah, that's hey, one thing that I realized is I was watching another video and it was mentioned that there are channels that are much smaller than I would have expected that still use video editors and pay people to edit their videos so that they can put out more content. You do everything yourself, right? And again, very different style videos. Some videos are just sit down, talk to the camera, very simple. Some
Right.
are like crazy hectic topics and all this stuff and a lot of B-roll and all this stuff. Obviously very, very different. But I think you'd be surprised at how many people pay video editors to help them. Have you thought about it? Like,
I mean,
Are
given
you
by
at
how
that
many
point where
requests and offers I get from people that want me to pay them to edit my videos and make my
really?
thumbnails better and
Right.
fix my
Your thumbnails are
SEO
awesome, actually.
and all that, I'm like, I'm good. Like I said, if this was something I was wanted to do for a career, sure, I would probably look into something like that, maybe at least on the engagement level, because I feel like I wish I could do something to get my engagement levels up. Because, like I said, I look at similar channels. I'm like, how are they getting so many views? I don't even understand
Yeah.
it. But no, I would, but I do believe that happens a lot. I know there are a lot of people who pay for what's the word I'm looking for? They'll pay for where it'll basically place you higher in the algorithm for a few days if you pay. And that was more, I think it started more with Facebook than anywhere else. They got the success doing that with Facebook. And it's just
Right.
basically a way to get, hey, this will get somebody to give your video a chance and maybe then they'll become a fan. And that's
Right.
why I looked at shorts when shorts first came out, because I thought people were more willing to give you a chance if it's a 1 minute video than they are a 20-minute video. And then I realized I can't say much of anything in 60 seconds. I ramble too much. So
Yeah, I find shorts are difficult. John at Talking Story has a real good knack, and I know, you know, his son helps him quite a bit, but he has a good knack of taking snippets out of these long form videos and
I've
making them
tried.
into
I suck at
actually
it.
compelling shorts. I try too, and I'm just like, that's not the part of the video that makes the most sense to do. Like, I don't know how to do that. It's not, I'm terrible at it, but yeah. Apparently Worldcon's in Seattle next year. Like, that's one that I can go to. I can drive to Seattle in like 2 hours.
Nice.
Maybe
Okay.
that's
Yeah, that's much more possible for me than Dublin. Yeah.
yeah,
More
totally
possible.
right. Absolutely, man. I'm going to London in 2 weeks from now for a week
Is
for
that
some family stuff.
pleasure or
My wife's
business?
mostly pleasure. My wife's family is from there, and so some of them are going back, and we're visiting some people there. But it's going to be a quick week. And I was just watching Patrick's vlog, and he was in the UK and walking down Cecil Court in London, and basically it's just a street with all these bookstores. Super cool. So it'll be cool to go there and look at some stuff. But
Definitely.
3 cents on Mike Spruce short. Dude, that
Oh,
short,
with
you
my
saw that one,
t-shirt?
right? That was so funny. That was so funny. I loved it. Ooh, maybe Johan and I will link up. That's cool. I'm going to be there from the 16th to the 24th or 25th or something like that. So we'll see. Dude, traveling's expensive, man. Hey, how are you able to take 17 vacations a year?
Me,
People want to
well,
know.
here's the thing that I tell people.
Like,
They're like,
calm down, guys. Yeah.
why do you take so much vacation? I'm like, because I get a lot of vacation. When you work for a company for
Yeah.
a long time,
Yeah.
you will accrue more hours of vacation.
Damn well earned it. Yeah.
So I had so many years of experience. I went back to school, and after I finished, I was going to re-enter the workforce. Vacation is negotiable, you guys. When you are actually going through the interview process, they will ask you, are there certain things that you want? Do you want certain hours? Do you want this? It's not just salary requests, guys. You can make requests for other things too. And I said, I want the same vacation benefits I have from my previous employer. And they said, we'll do you one better. We'll give you a week on top of that. You don't
There
know
you
if you
go.
don't ask.
There you go.
So I have five. Now I have 5 weeks of vacation time per year, and you better believe I'm going to use it, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And they encourage you. They encourage you. That's why I knew I was with a good company.
We have to, absolutely. By the end of the year, they're like, you need to, like, you can only carry over so much. You got to use it. Yeah.
So many people's employers give a shit about taking time off. Mine's like, please take your time off. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I knew it was a good company, because if they don't want you to take your vacation time, you're not working for the right company. I'm sorry.
Totally. No, and I echo that. Yeah, I have a pretty good situation myself, and I think you take strategic vacations too. Like, you do a lot of cruising, which is, I think,
well, we also
financially it makes sense, right?
Well, when you said strategic, I thought you meant like this. Like this week, I only had to take 3 vacation days to get like 10 days off.
Oh, that is a different kind of strategy. Yes,
I have every other Friday off for a 980 schedule. So I had that Friday off, and then we were already off for Labor Day. So I just had to take Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm off for like a week plus. You know, so sometimes you always got to be strategic like that. The thing is, everybody wants to do that, you know, and you got to make sure that everybody's covered. But with us, I did get like a crap from people like, oh, you take so many trips per year. They just think you're rolling in it. And I'm like, you guys realize that cruising is not nearly as expensive as you think it is. And I was like, Galveston is like an hour and a half drive from us. So it's like, it's not like I have to pay any expenses to get to the ship. Your boarding, your room, your food, your sites is all paid for when you pay for a cruise. And if you go off season, it is dirt cheap because they don't have anybody to fill those ships. So
It's
people
true.
think that that's like, oh, that's just like some big luxurious thing. It's like, it's fun. Don't get me wrong, and we enjoy it. It's just, it's not that big a deal. It's
Yeah.
like, I could see if we were going to Disney 3 times a year, but I was like,
You
this
know
is,
what's
it's
crazy?
not a big
So
deal.
it's crazy you say that. My wife and I, with some friends of ours, did kind of a bucket list thing as a Canadian on the West Coast. We wanted to go to Disney World, right? Orlando. We wanted to go to Disney World and do the thing. We were there for like, I don't know, 10 days or something like that. And we did the
Wow.
parks for maybe
Sounds
8, right?
exhausting. Yeah.
It was exhausting. But Mike, listen, we probably spent more than we would have spent doing 2 weeks in Italy. Like the flight is coast to coast, very expensive. And the hotel and the parks and the food, I couldn't believe how much we spent.
We've
And it
kind
was
of like
crazy.
did a dry run because we were actually planning to do the Disney trip, the family Disney
Mhm.
trip, right before Virus Shall Not Be Named hit. And then it's
Right.
just then it was like watered down for a couple years after that while it recovered. And
Yep.
we've done the dry run, we've done the pricing and all that. And I'm just like, we could probably go to Barbados, Aruba, and Turks and Caicos on the same amount of money and come home with money left over for
Yep.
what it costs to go to Disney. It's insane how much it
Yep.
costs. It's insane.
In your job, do you have that? I know we both work in finance. Maybe we can talk about that later. But do you have a job where someone can kind of take over your stuff, or is this like future Mike's work when he gets back? Like you still got
Uh,
to do it.
no, I saw Brent saying that. I'm the type, and this is just part of working for a smaller company before you went to the big media, the big corporate monster that I'm with now.
Yeah.
Is you had that kind of thing like when I started for this company, I was shocked when they said, "Hey, we'd like you to reply to all vendors' emails within 72 hours." I was like, 72 hours? I was like, what?
Yeah.
My last company, it was like,
That's a
you
lot.
reply to it before lunch or we'll replace you.
Yeah.
So I'm the
Exactly.
type that has the work ethic of I'm going to work ahead. I'm gonna stay a
Gotcha.
little late each day, kind of get ahead of my work to where, hey, I don't think that the roof's going to fall in when I'm gone. Sure, it'll be
Yeah.
really the hardest part about when I get back is the emails are outrageous. You click on your email inbox and it's like in 4 digits. You're like, oh
Filter
my
through
god,
it. Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
god, But with me, it's like I work so far ahead. Usually, I'm so far ahead of my schedule because again, when you work with a corporate place, apparently they're okay with a slower work pace than it was if you work for that smaller company. So it's easy for me. They're the type of like when I started, they're like, "Hey, slow down! You're making everybody look bad." That's kind of how it was
Yeah.
when I first started
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it's like you get lazier. I think it's just I will focus my energies on other places and make sure that I get like really far ahead before I go. That's probably why I've gotten promoted twice because they like that.
Yeah. I'm in that spot right now. So I'm going to have a week in London, and again, that was a little bit last minute, a little bit more for family and a trip that we just had to make. But then in October, for about 2.5 weeks, almost 3, I'm gone hunting with my uncle and my cousin, and that's going to be a situation where we're approaching year end. We're in that last quarter, and I'm going to have to get ahead to make sure that I'm not thinking about it too much when I'm stalking some elk in the bush, right? So
I always know it's one
yeah.
of us when someone uses the term the fiscal year end or the fiscal quarter. I'm like,
Fiscal court. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
that's it.
knows. He knows. So without, giving too much away, like, what do you do? What's your function? Because finance encompasses a whole host of
Yeah,
things, as we
I
as we
mean, a little
both
bit
know,
of
right?
everything. I've been doing it for so
Yeah.
long. Like I started in payables. I did some
Yeah.
receivables, all that kind of stuff, all the boring stuff. You really start with
Yeah.
at the beginning. Kind of got into forecasting. Because
Cool.
with the company like I'm with now, it's like there's so much cash flow going around. So the cash flow statement, that's my baby right there. And if
Okay.
you've worked with it, so Excel spreadsheet. That's why I even Excel spreadsheet my grocery list. Because we can't
Yeah.
function without it. But
Yeah.
I did some risk analysis for a while, but and I think that's what to the day I'm still just like I've got to forecast everything 12 to 15 months advance. It's just because it's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of float around, do a lot of Excel, Power BI, just stuff that's going to bore people
Power
that aren't
BI.
in the industry.
I haven't heard a person in real life say Power BI
You
before.
know,
That's funny.
the thing is it's in college because I went
Yeah.
back to college when I was 37, and they
Wow.
wanted you to do everything in Excel. And so
Yeah.
when I got the company I'm with now, they're like, "Oh, we do a lot of stuff in Power BI." I'm like, "Really? Wow!" There was like taboo in college. So I
Yeah.
actually had to take like a 8 hour course to learn how to. They provide that. They provide you with an 8 hour course to take to get
Yeah.
certified in Power BI first.
Yeah.
I know we're boring the shit out of everybody.
I know.
I'm like, hey, this is cool.
I just wanted to hang out with you and talk a little. Yeah, like
Yeah,
and it's funny. So you build these statements, these cash flow statements, whatever. So I use those in my job. So I'm in corporate banking. So my clients are corporations and I help them with lending and acquisitions and all this kind of stuff. So everything that you prepare, I look at and then have to understand it. So thank you.
It's a well-oiled machine, guys. There's a lot of it's a
lot
circle.
of people.
It's a circle of life when
Absolutely.
it comes to finance. Everyone has to work together, and that's why probably I bang heads with inventory the most. But you know how these things go.
Yeah. You went back to school late. Hey, so I'm 37 right now. I can't even imagine. I feel like I went back to school late because I had an interesting career and I did a little bit of everything. I worked as a Honda technician and I was a carpenter and I've worked in restaurants and I've worked as a lumber trader and I've done a little bit of everything, and I take pride in that. And I've worked in shipping, receiving, warehouses and stuff, manufacturing. I hid that on the resume a little bit because I was like, that's not really what I want to do. But now I take pride in it because I can kind of speak a lot of languages and have, knowledge in different industries and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I went back to school late, going back to business school, getting my business degree at 23, 24. I went back after spending a lot of time in the workforce, 25 maybe. So just before I was 30, I kind of graduated and got my stuff back. So I can't imagine going now, but so kudos to you. Anyway.
It was one of those things where you kick the can down the road for so long, you think it's never going to happen. Because I remember I didn't want to take student loans. I mean, again, I was raised in a family where my mom, my dad, and my brother all in their lives have declared for bankruptcy because they didn't know how to handle money. So I was like, I'm not going to do I remember asking my brother, when I got my first checkbook, he's like, I don't know how to do one of those. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So it's one of those
they don't teach that in school.
Yeah.
Crazy,
I
right?
learned from that and that don't spend more than you take in. Hey, well, this seems pretty easy. But I didn't want to take student loans because everybody I knew that took them, they're like, I'm going to be paying these off my whole career. I'm basically going to have this career that pays well just to pay off my student loans. So I said I didn't want to do that. So I just said, I'm going to put myself through school. That lasted a semester before I realized you just can't afford that. And I just, did several jobs. It just weren't fun. Then I started working at this, the company that I was at before I am where I'm at now. And you didn't need a degree to get this job I had, and just kind of work my way up. And it was one of those if you had a degree, you'd probably double your income, is what the controller of the company actually told me. So I was like, okay, well,
say no more.
He's like, the company pays for it. So he encouraged me. And I remember just one day I just had a really shitty, I was like, I got to go back to school. I got to go back to school. So it was one of those things where I told my wife, after the wedding, after the kid's born, after the second kid's born. And I just realized I was just kicking the can down the road. So I started taking part-time classes with that company. And when I got to my 2-year degree, like I said, they were paying for it. Once I got my 2-year done, it's that point where you're too far to stop. You can't really do anything with a 2-year degree. And the company got acquired and our office was eliminated. So I applied for a scholarship. I said, what can it hurt? No chance I was going to get it because there was over 6,000 people and they were going to pick 4. I think there's no way they're going to pick me, this old guy. At the time I'm 39 years old. And I'm like, dang. So I went and interviewed for it. And I was like, I'm just going to treat this like a job interview. That's something I know how to do well. Crushed it. Knew I got it. So I got it, but it was like, you have to go full time. Like, okay. Well, my wife was staying home with the kids at the time and she's a teacher. It's really easy for a teacher to go back to the workforce. So she's like, why don't I go back to work and you just do school for these last 2 years and knock it out? And that's what happened when I first started the channel. I was in my senior year of going back to school. So it was a crazy ride. It was a crazy ride. And I'm thankful, I don't have any debt. And it did double what I was making previously.
Yeah.
So when I went, don't go to college, go to a trade school because college degrees they're not worthless. I think a trade school is great if that's something you want to do, but they're not worthless. And I'm evidence of that because I have almost the same job I had before, but making a lot more money.
Yeah, it is true. And I will say, I can echo that too from experience. And I do think it's important to target kind of where you want to land. And you're right. I think 2 people comparably in one job, maybe one will make more for sure on average with the degree. That's true. I think a lot of degrees don't guide people in the right direction. And unfortunately,
don't go get a communications degree and wonder why you're not making 6 figures.
I'm a proponent of education and academia and all that. I just think the system's a bit broken. And I feel like people should study and become experts in areas that they want to and still should be able to make a living. You want to study philosophy, that's cool, man. And you should be able to do something with that. And unfortunately, we're sort of guided to the trade schools or the business school or the whatever, where you can make tangible benefit from your from your paperwork, right? But
Sure.
it's a bit of a broken system,
No, I'm always,
unfortunately.
but
But
hey, always be learning new stuff because you never
absolutely,
know. You never know how the
yeah,
job market's going to shift. Now, with me, it was like I'm getting general business because I feel like I can do anything with that, really.
yeah, same,
But
yeah,
yeah, never just pigeonhole yourself to one thing. Always be
yeah.
learning new trades. Like you heard all the things that Theo talked about. Sounds like he could probably build a house and cook a nice dinner and all those fun things if he had to. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So that's true. Actually, it's funny. I make a joke. Me in finance. If there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm useless. My job is useless. But luckily, I did learn some skills
Yeah.
along the way where that might save me. But yeah,
Being here in Southeast Texas, it's if you are bilingual in Spanish, that's a big plus on the
huge
resume.
plus.
And I thought, okay,
Yeah,
I took 2 years in high school, but we skate by on that. It's just whatever. You don't really pay attention. You did enough to just to pass a test. And I thought, okay, I'm going to really, really buckle down hard and try to learn Spanish. Got the Rosetta Stone, all that stuff. And then I met my wife, who
yeah,
is
man.
perfectly fluent in Spanish. Like, well, I found my 3PO. I don't need to learn
She's
Spanish.
not really.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
Wow,
She
that's
teaches
awesome.
she teaches English as a second language.
There you go. Okay,
A
cool.
lot of her students are people that have been in the country for less than a year. So it's
Wow.
really nice. So I was always on time like, hey, when we go to Cozumel, like, got you on lock, right? You can take
Yeah.
care of this. Yeah.
Do kids learn? Do kids? Because here, for example, a lot of people go into French immersion because French is our official second
Yeah,
language.
yeah, yeah.
I would argue that there are a couple other languages that are more prevalent and probably way more valuable to know. But do kids like learn Spanish in school? Is that like a thing? Or maybe
They have
more so in
options
Texas than
now.
other places? Yeah.
They have lots of like it's 2 years is mandatory in high school here. You have, of a
Right.
foreign language just for your degree,
Gotcha.
just for your high school degree. It's not just Spanish. It's just like you're in Texas. A lot of the population is Spanish speaking, so it makes a lot of sense, especially for business acumen. But you can take anything. But they are starting now where it's like my kid's in 7th grade, and it's an option. He can start taking Spanish now if he wants, because if you get 4 years, that goes towards your college credit.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Tell them to
Interesting.
jump on it, but I'm also telling them I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. But
Yeah.
there you go. That option's there.
So, question.
Mhm.
What I'm curious, do your kids show a disposition for one thing or another? Is one more like you than the other? Is one more artsy? Is one more math oriented? Like,
Dude, they tell you all the time as a parent that like your kids will be different. Mine are so different, like to the point where I will give them both 2 options for dinner and they will always pick the opposite. Like 100%
really?
of the time. They could not be more different. Thankfully, they get along great. That's nice,
Yeah.
because that was something that was important to me, because me and my brother were 6 years apart in age, and we just now get along. We didn't get
Yeah.
along as kids.
My
Obviously,
wife
that
too,
comes
6 years with her sister, and she's the
yeah.
younger. And so that,
And
yeah,
so I told my wife, like, you want to have a second one? They got no more than 3 years apart. So they are 3 years apart. And obviously they like a lot of the same things. So it works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, they couldn't be more different, man. Could not be
really,
more different. As far as one being like me, it's kind of split. There's some
yeah,
things that like my oldest does. I'm like, you must have got that from your mom, because it's not like me. Like I bite my fingernails. Damn it, I hate it so much. And he's got
right,
like these He's got these Freddy Krueger claws. And whereas my younger one bites his nails. It's
right.
just little things like that. But no, neither one of them show
Funny.
any interest in reading, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. Well,
What
hey,
kids do these days.
it's true. Although you do read a lot of stuff with your kid, right? Or at least you
We read,
have,
like,
right?
we read the Percy Jackson stuff. Now he's
Yeah.
started just like to choose to stay up an extra 30 minutes. He don't need me anymore. He's just kind of
Right, right.
he can look at comic books and stuff on his own.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We all
Sad.
outgrow that.
I knew it would
I
happen.
know.
I knew it would happen. He's almost a teenager. It's going to happen where he doesn't need me to read to him before bed anymore.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
so we
we're
started building Lego sets now.
yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds
Well, I
cool.
was like thinking that like me and my brother, with anytime we did spend together, we would build like the old models, where you paint them and
Yeah.
you use super glue and all that. I was
Same.
like, I'm not giving my kids super glue. That's crazy.
No.
She's like, why don't
And
we just
paint
get
and
one of
stuff. Yeah.
those Lego sets? So we got like a Pirates of the Caribbean like pirate ship, and we've been working on it slowly for a bit now. And
That's
we
awesome.
finally got like the whole built. That's it.
Yeah.
It'll be like an hour every few nights or so. It's good team building, right?
I'm excited. So I'm an only child. My dad's an only child. Don't have a lot of family. A lot of my family that I do have, extended cousins and stuff, are in Greece. Like, I don't have a lot of family here. So like, I always wanted to have a big family. And of course, life happens and things happen and plans change. And so now me and my wife are just planning to start a family too, if we're lucky enough to have a kid. So we're trying. And so I don't know. Pros and cons being an older dad, younger dad. You had yours a little younger. Like, I don't know, man. I'm
I got
terrified, but
lots of
also very
advice on this
excited.
one. So I had
Oh
my first one
man.
when I was 34. And here's the deal is like,
Okay.
I'm glad I waited because I was able to provide for them a much better than I had if I had been younger. You know,
Yeah.
I
That
grew
was
up in
big for me.
poverty.
I grew up with not much,
I didn't
so
want my yeah, I didn't want my kids to
same.
grow up like that.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where like I'd be playing with them in the front yard and I'd be sucking wind. I'd be like, why did I wait this long? You know, so there's a
Yeah.
trade-off there. You know, you wait till you can financially fit because you hear everybody, oh, I just don't think I can afford it, or I just don't think I'm ready. I'm like, bro, you ain't never gonna be ready. You
That's
ain't
what
gonna
I
be
hear.
ready until the baby pops out. Trust me, the dad switch just flips on. It just
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still have terrors all the time. Am I being a bad dad? Because you know, I'm from a divorced family. And my dad wasn't really too interested in being a dad. You know,
Yeah.
so those things that I would kind of want to change. I'm a first generation college student, so it's never too late to change those things, but it will weigh on you big time. Like, am I messing this person up psychologically, like forever? You know,
Hmm.
but as far as having it later in life, I think it will make you more wise to things that you shouldn't do with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking more about my parents. My parents are a little older. They had me later, and weirdly enough, they had me about the age that I am now.
It's so weird
Um,
like that because I'm the youngest kid in my family, and my wife was the only kid. So her mom was like 15 years younger than my
yeah.
mom. It's really weird how that works.
Crazy, right? So I just keep thinking that I want my parents to be able to enjoy a grandkid. They're a little bit they both have their own illnesses, and they're both not doing 100%. But as I see the clock ticking, I just want, not so much for me, but I want them to be able to enjoy
Of
a
course.
grandkid, right? So we're anyway. So that's that. But so speaking about kids and stuff, how do you? I know that you talking about getting winded and stuff playing with your kids.
Yeah.
You had a pretty impressive weight loss journey through
Oh,
keto
yeah.
and all that, and I
Mhm.
followed that a little bit, and I've done keto. Keto is one of the few things that really work for me when I really need to dial it in.
Right.
It's a good tool, and I see other benefits with it too. How do you deal with that with your wife? Because the two of you did it, look phenomenal versus your before pictures that you've shown, and it's a healthy lifestyle. It helps in other ways. How do you balance that with like your kids and stuff? Do they eat keto? Like, how do you do, if I want to go on a keto diet, I'm worried that my wife's going to hate it for a while, or I'm sucking her into it. Like, does the whole family do this or what?
I wish like people will tell you that let the chips fall where they may. Kids will eventually eat them. Like my oldest, it is a
Sure.
fight. It is a fight to get him not just to eat vegetables, to get him to eat meat. He
Right.
fell into that trap of processed food and stuff. It's hard to get him off of that.
Yeah.
My youngest will eat just about anything, except they aren't crazy if they aren't familiar with it. Like I probably have the only two kids in the world that don't want spaghetti. Like ever, they can't stand
Really?
pasta. Yeah, they love pizza, but they don't like spaghetti sauce. I'm like, it's the same thing that's on your pizza, but they just don't
Totally.
believe me. They always think you're out to trick them. You know. So I remember
So funny.
when they were really young, I made like these homemade like pizza pockets. You know, 'cause I thought it would be fun, a fun night. And they just cried bloody tears because I was going to make them eat this thing that they didn't know what it was. And my youngest actually goes, "You make the grossest stuff." You know,
Nice.
so it was
Heartwarming.
like
Yeah. Thanks, man.
it gets to that point where it's like my wife and I will do it. Like we'll have a steak and we'll have some greens with it, and the kids are just like, I don't feel like fighting the fight with them. Just make us some freaking corn dogs, because
Yeah.
you just don't feel like
Yeah.
having the fight with them. So I feel like you will fall into that trap as a parent where you're just like, just make them something quick, something that's not going to be a headache, and I
Yeah.
think we could probably do better with that, honestly. But with us, it's like we'll work really hard to get them like eating right and things like that, and then they'll go with the grandparents and just get sugared, and caffeined
Yeah.
up, and then
That's
it just
kind of
all
their job though, right?
yeah,
A little
that's their
bit. But
job.
yeah, no, I get it. So your kids don't, so you and your wife eat keto every day? Like, are you still strict on it, or do you
Well,
use it
well,
sometimes?
we all have those times where we fall off a wagon, and I talk about the people ask the other dance
I'm
person
off the
before.
wagon right now, man.
What
Anyway,
what
whatever.
was what was the biggest mistake that you made during lockdown? And I said, for me, it was falling into bad eating habits because we got to the point where we weren't even going down the frozen food aisle anymore because everything was fresh. Obviously, with that, you weren't able to go out and buy fresh food every couple of days. It wasn't
Yeah.
easy. So
Yeah.
we fell into some of those old traps again. So I think when I started the channel and through like 2020, 2021, I was at the ideal weight. I felt like I felt like I had hit all my goals. Kind of let it kind of slide back and forth because I'd have like some bad holidays, and I'd always be like, okay, well, after football season, that was one last year. After football
Oh
season,
man.
like seriously, Mike, beer and pizza every weekend, huh? But after
Yeah.
we did our vacation in earlier this year, because my wife, she was like, I can't do keto anymore. And she just kind of fell off it where I stayed on it. And
Right.
after the trip, she was like, "Okay, none of my work clothes are fitting anymore. I'm ready to go back hardcore." And we both have now. I did have that Dallas trip, and we drank and ate out a few times, and we felt really really bad about it. But we've been back on it pretty
Yeah.
good here ever since the
That's
trip.
awesome.
And it's one of those things where I got rid of all my insanely fat clothes after I lost all that weight because I was like, I'm never doing that again. So now I know when my work clothes start getting tight, it's time to get back on the wagon. So I make
I'm
sure
at that point right now. Isn't that the worst when you wake up, put on that dress shirt, and that collar doesn't quite button, or those
yeah,
buttons are
yeah. Or you're
stretching a
like,
little
you know
bit? You're
what?
like, what the
I'm
hell?
recording this. Like, I'll record this video and be like, dude, I feel like I can see a second chin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Story of my life. Yeah.
They'll keep you in line when you put your
That's
face
a
on
new
it.
belt notch. That's interesting. Yeah.
Like I remember after Christmas one year, go back to work in January, and I like, my God, I gotta go buy a new pair of jeans because these don't fit anymore. And that's why I was like, all right, you gotta calm it down. Everybody messes up on the holidays, guys. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Holiday
So
beer, sweets.
for a while now, especially since the virus, things are a little bit more lenient. But before, I was very much suit and tie, right, in the office, and which I liked. And I still have, I have a bunch of suits, and some are the chunky suits, and some are the slim fit suits, and some are the whatever. And I just I never know which I'm gonna pick when I wake up. Right? I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, but yeah.
I have also like some t-shirts. I'm like, dude, I wore this t-shirt on a video in 2020. Why is it not fit anymore? Oh, because you're being an idiot, So
Yeah,
it happens.
my dad. I have some skinny clothes from when I was a little bit trimmer. That it's hard to get there. I'm 6'3". I'm a natural 240. Like that. That's where my body just likes to be. If I want to get down to 220,
How tall are you?
it takes 6'3".
Yes, I'm 6'1".
So I'll put that. Yeah,
You look at the BMI index, it's like, that's bullshit. My skeleton weighs more than 150 pounds. Get the hell out of here.
dude, BMI. I look at that in the doctor's office. Like I should be dead. I should be dead. Like I'm so far off. They're like, you're a corpse.
I think the lowest, I got down to like 177. And like my wife was like, you look sick. You need to stop.
Yeah.
So I was like, 153 is my BMI? You're kidding me. I'd be dead.
No, there's no way. It makes no sense. And I have some skinny clothes, some skinny shirts and things like that. And my dad wears them now. Like there's no chance I'm going to wear these. Like how's that shirt from fucking 2011, Dad? Like, thanks. Why do you still have that? But anyway.
Here's a medical student saying BMI is bullshit. Yeah. It's like, we update this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like,
crazy.
BMI is like over 100 years old. Let's update this, huh?
Yeah. A lot of things are outdated. Absolutely.
Meals,
And it makes you feel like terrified. You're like, oh my God, I'm the most unhealthy human being on the planet, probably. Like this makes no sense. But anyway, yeah. What was I going to ask you? I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you have on your shelf that you haven't read, but like no real good reason why, that you're like itching to get to, but for some reason you just have there's a couple things on mine. I want to ask you about one of them, embarrassingly, and I might lose some subs over this. Lord of the Rings. I haven't read Lord of the Rings, man. And
I mean, there's a lot of people still who that love the movies and never read the books, I think. And because they almost feel like, I don't know, it's like required reading or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of people who haven't read them, and it was Andy Serkis doing the audio narration that got some of them to do it finally. Like,
I have those on deck. I'm waiting to kind of read those together and listen to those together.
I'm so jealous of you guys' ability to audio. I've tried, man. It doesn't. The speed don't matter. People are like, oh, just change it. No, the speed don't matter. I just stopped paying attention. I think it's all those years of listening to sports radio because you can just kind of zone out, But I'm so jealous of you guys that can do that. For me, you'd asked me this like a month ago. It would have been the Baker, the Darkness That Comes Before, because really my only excuse for not reading that was I wanted to finish Malazan first. And I just finally got to the point after I got bullied by Philip and Joanna and Jordan over at iWizard that one time. I was like, all right, fine. I'll just go ahead and start it. And I loved it. It's amazing. It's really, really good. In fact, it might be just exactly what I was looking for, honestly. That perfect marriage of grimdark with Dune and Lord of the Rings. That sounds amazing, right? And it actually is. But now I don't know. It was Lonesome Dove for a long time. It was Shogun for a long time. I feel like I'm getting all my bucket list ones kind of off here. But then there's a series that like I don't know if I'll ever read, honestly. Like Gene Wolfe, Book of the New Sun. Sorry guys, I just spent like 3 days with Christopher Rocchio. I've heard a lot about Gene Wolfe and his pestering me to read Gene Wolfe. Gosh, Black Company is one that people have told me to read a lot. But then there were people who are like, the military fantasy stuff you didn't like in Malazan. That's kind of like that entire series is. It's like,
damn. I have the first one, so we'll see.
But if as far as like, is there something that I want to read that I haven't? It would just be like a sequel book or something. Like I want to read more Ken Follett's Kingsbridge
Hmm.
books. I want to read Christopher's new book. I still haven't read Disquiet Gods, So
Yeah.
it's more things like that.
Yeah. I have Baker on, is it Baker or
There she
Baker?
is.
I don't know. Whatever.
I say Baker. I hope it's Baker. Yeah.
I say Baker too, but I see those double K's. I'm like, I don't know exactly, but
See that? She's a silent assassin. She was waiting until I conjured her name and she shows up with a shift. That's what
yeah,
she did.
yeah. Those are super priority for me. I heard you gush about them. Everybody, Joanna. I feel like I'll really mesh with that one. Malazan, I don't know where I'm going to land, but I feel like I'll like the what is it called, Second Apocalypse as a series. So yeah.
I mean, it's one from one, so we'll never see. We'll see, but there are people who tell me like, even today, like Philip told me he thinks that the first trilogy, will be one of my 10 favorite fantasy series ever. He's like Aspect Emperor. I'm not sure, the sequel series, how that'll go. So we'll see. Yes, Joanne, you are the best of both these.
Much more concise and maybe more absurd. So I think the first one on the Black Company.
And that's
I also
what
have
I've been telling people, that I don't feel like maybe Darkness Comes Before will be for everybody, but I'm saying like if you really liked Malazan about like how unique it was and you really like the world building about it, I was like, I feel like you get that, but you don't get all the like, is this actually happening? What's happening right now? Is this a dream? Is this a vision? Is this, I don't know what's going on. You don't have that. Everything that's happening on the page. You might wonder why the hell are they doing this? But at least you are clear about what is actually happening. So I say I feel like it's a more focused Malazan.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I think I'm going to vibe with that one a lot. There's so much to read, and there's a lot of indie books that I want to read too. Like there's so many. Do you have any indie priorities? Because I know you slot those in every now and then. Do you have are you going to do a year where you read more indie?
I thought that was going to be this year, but then everything just keeps kind of jumping in front of us. That's why people are like, why do you plan 12 to 15 months in advance? Because of that. That's why. Yeah. But this year I said, I'm only going to do 1 month at a time. It's allowed things to get skipped, things to kind of get dropped. And then I did this thing where I was going to do one fantasy, one horror, one sci-fi, one miscellaneous book.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's fun,
but
I'm also like, am I really only going to read 12 fantasy books a year? That's still my thing. So I think I'm coming out of that. But I wanted to do more self-help than I did this year. And I feel really bad that I haven't. But I would say I have a like priority. There's several authors that I talked to that are just so awesome, and I want to give their books a try. But then Ryan keeps putting out books that are freaking 1,400 pages. That kind of
that's a priority series for me. That's an indie priority series for me. I feel like I'd love that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very much a mood reader. I know you like to plan. We're both kind of nerds that way. I do like to plan, but I end up always giving into being a mood reader. Do you shift through the year? More planning, more
I feel like I'm actually like evolving on this, as I've always been a planner. Always. I mean, again, you work in finance, you have to. You are that way. But I've started to find myself where I'll be looking at my schedule and where I'll look at it like next month, and I've like moved everything down because I want to move everything in. So I think I'm just being more receptive to, okay, such and such is reading this book and it sounds really good. Or there's this crazy new release. I like at the Silver Book Promise. I didn't plan to read that book. And I just
that's right.
About it. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and check it out. So I found myself more willing to do that this year. But I do also still find myself being like, no, you said you were going to do this. Quit being that bright, shiny object and running to it. But I'm trying to do like a balance between the two. Like if I tell... To me, I just don't want to tell viewers I'm going to read this month, and then they buy it and they're going to read along with me, and then I'm like, oh, change my mind. I feel bad about that.
That's a tough position to be in because a lot of people do hop on when they see you read stuff, right? For sure. 400 pages into War and Ruin, man, that thing's a beast. Jeez.
It is, man. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. You like fantasy above everything else, right? You're like a fantasy mostly guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen King's my favorite author, so I always say that like. His books will always be the best for me. He only has, 1 or 2 fantasy series out there, but it's, I guess, series. Dark Tower's always a series, but he's done other fantasy books. But it's the genre that I love the most is going to be fantasy, without a doubt.
Yeah. Do you keep a lot of books on the go at the same time? Like I have like 5 on the go, and I'm prioritizing too, but I have a lot. Yeah.
I try to keep it to 2. Like right now,
Mhm.
I would say I'm doing Blood Song and the Grady Hendrix book, and it's much easier to say than the long title for that book is just to say the Grady Hendrix book.
Yeah.
I try to balance it. Like if I won't read like 2 fantasy series at the same time because it's just going to be
Right.
a mess.
Right.
So I try to say, oh, I'm reading a fantasy one. Okay, I can do a horror book or a sci-fi book or something like that, or historical fiction or something. But I used to do it a lot more. I used to always read 2 books at a time, and for the last year plus, I've been really good at focusing on one at a time, and I don't know how that happened because
Yeah.
it's never been my style. So I think that'll probably uh, regression to the mean eventually. I think will happen. I'll get back to doing that. That's what I'm doing right now. But with a book like Darkness That Comes Before, it's like I want to focus on just that because I'll get way too distracted, and I want to just kind of immerse myself in that world. But yeah, if you're reading something that's a sci-fi and a horror, you can read those at the same time. I think it's not a problem. It's just fantasy. There's
Yeah.
just so many moving parts. You have to make sure you focus on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Halfway through Dune and loving it. That's awesome. Yeah. There's so many series I want to get. Like I do read multiple series at a time sometimes, but they need to be like different enough. So like I'm almost finished Live Ship Traders. I've took a lot longer on that one than I wanted to. But for example, for example, I'm reading that alongside now Stormlight. And then I guess I have a couple other series ongoing. I have We Are the Dead or The Last War and stuff. So that one is a very different vibe, very different world. And I feel like for the most part, I can keep them all
Now I
straight.
will split series up like that because I don't. I sometimes I'll say, oh, I'm going to do this whole trilogy in a month, and now I'm back to just doing one. So I will split series up like that.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to read like at the same time reading 2 different fantasy books because like you try and do Stormlight and Live Ship Traders. I don't know how you're doing that. That's nuts.
No, the answer to that is I'm not. So I end up finding that I start to read a couple things at the same time, and then a few books will carry me through, and I'll just prioritize those because I'm more invested, more immersed, at the detriment of the other series that I'm reading, which sucks. And so I feel bad about starting multiple things, like maybe, but I need to bounce around. I can't commit to one world, one story, back to back to back. Like I can't. I need to bounce around. So sometimes I bounce around, and then I end up leaving one, high and dry for a bit. So
yeah, it can happen. I mean, like I saw someone say, "House Hold the Hound's coming," because I've been stuck on Malazan.
That's right. That's right.
Can you believe that? Like 80% through Malazan, and I've been paused. It's like people
Are you
like,
that far?
I'm about
Oh yeah,
quarter of the
you
way through
are.
book 8. Yeah, and the thing is like people all the time are just like, "Well, if you're just going to quit, why don't you just say quit?" I'm like, "Look, I'm not scared of Malazan fans. Okay, I'm married to a redhead. You guys can't scare me.
Yeah.
If I was going to quit, I'd say it. I made a whole video about series I'll probably never go back to. I've made that video. I will quit a series.
Yeah.
I don't feel like one goes that far in Malazan, don't finish. It was just like I felt like I needed to take a break because I was just going to force it and hate read it at the end if I didn't take a break. Never meant for it to be almost 3 years. I really didn't. And now it's like, will I know what's going on? Oh, it doesn't matter because I didn't know what was going on before.
Well, let me ask you a question, and you can answer this delicately too. But like when you say, like you end up taking a break on something, and I'm in this too with a couple series, like you take a break, and is that because you're not enjoying it? Like what makes someone put something down for longer than you expect? Do we have to be honest with ourselves and say, I'm not loving it?
Those
Like
books are just so long and they are a lot of work. And
they just take too much.
Book 7 like burned me out big time. It was so long and like literally nothing happened. It really, really bummed me out. And then I started 8. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was frustrated because I was like, here we go again. Book 8. We're introducing all these fucking new characters because the guy just can't help himself. And I was just frustrated. And I said, I'm just going to take a break. And
you just needed a break.
I took a 6-month break in Wheel of Time, and I felt like it wasn't a problem to go back to it. And every time I tried to go back to it, it just didn't work. To where I said, I'm just going to go back to it when I feel like I'm having that calling for it. It just hasn't really happened. And part of it isn't just that, but it was just look at all these other easier things I have to read.
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't want to work so hard when I was reading a book, and Malazan books are a lot of work. And I say all this stuff, and people think that means I hate it. It's like I really, really enjoy the series. It's just it was a lot of work, and I was very frustrated. Now it's like all that work I put in, and I feel like I haven't held on to a lot of it enough. Where I've got to probably go back and watch all my old spoiler talk videos of those to remember everything. Because if not, I'll pick up Told the Hounds right now, and I'll be like, "What's going on?" So I don't.
Well, just so you know, Mike, Told the Hounds is the best,
That's what some
but
people tell me.
it's also the worst. So
Yes,
FYI, there you
I
go.
think Alan told me it was either the best or the worst. I can't remember. It was like a lot of people were telling me it was the best one. I think it was Scott was telling me, Bold Booktube were telling me it was the best one, and then Alan was telling me it was the worst one. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well,
It's funny
all
how
right.
different people can latch onto different things, and people can experience one part of a story in so many different ways. It's incredible. Yeah. I didn't. Have you ever tried Outlander? Have you ever watched the show
We
or read the
watched the
books or?
show. We watched the
Okay.
show. We actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah,
But I've never actually picked up any of the books, and I think a big part is they're chonkers, man. They're
they
massive,
are.
massive
They are.
books. And I'm still such a noob on historical fiction that I mean, this got time travel, so that's fun. But
Mhm.
that's just something that I got to kind of ease my way into. And I was like, there's several other historical fiction series. Like I wanted Kingsbridge. I wanted to do with the Saxon Tales, Bernard Cornwell, The Last Kingdom. I wanted to do those. So I think really it's just there was so many things that were in front of it at the time. That's why I haven't actually read them. But my wife did, and I did enjoy the show quite a bit.
I started the first book, and the narration on the audiobook was exceptional. I was reading it on Kindle as well, and I enjoyed it. And as historical fiction, it was really good. But I ended up DNFing it just because it wasn't my jam. It wasn't my vibe. She was making choices that I just felt were weird, and I put it down. It wasn't. I don't think it was for me.
I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. What you're talking about weird in that book. Because someone was saying
I
I
was
read Outlander when I was
what?
11, and
Yeah.
that probably I can't imagine even functioning after reading that at 11 because some of the
Yeah.
content in it. Like even I talk about I read Pillars of the Earth at 15, and I was like, I had never read anything that brutal in my life at that time period. I don't know how I processed that at 15 years old. And I was like, oh yeah, because I read it the summer before. That's how I processed it, But 11, man, I can't even think about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
we started, my wife and I started the show, and she even said, she's like, this show's not really for me. I think I'm going to watch the show and see if it makes me want to go back to the books and stuff. Cause it was interesting, but it just cause it wasn't my vibe at the
I
time.
would say Blackjack. That is one of the best villains, man. He is messed up. He is out there. He makes a lot of these fantasy villains look like I don't know Santa Claus by comparison because he's
Wow.
he's messed
I
up.
got to get
Man.
back to that. God damn. Okay. Here's something I did want to ask you about. Wheel of Time.
Hmm?
I've never read Wheel of Time. There's a lot I wanted to read before I went back to
Sure.
something so classic.
Man.
And I don't know. I'm on the fence because I hear a lot of divisive things, and it's a huge commitment. I know that really, got your channel a lot of traction and stuff, and that's really where you got back into fantasy and stuff. So, would you recommend it? And if
Oh
and
yeah.
who would you recommend it to? Like, when do you think someone like me should do it? Should I fit it in very slowly over a long period of
Yes,
time?
you should
Oh, okay.
definitely take breaks. I tell people the people that burn out in Wheel of Time is the ones who's like, I'm just gonna do all 14 books like in a row.
Okay.
You're not. No, you're not. It's not healthy for you either. Like I know several people who went through the series on audio in like a couple months. I'm like, that's awesome that you could do that. For me, I read it and I had to take breaks because again, from what you're telling me here, it sounds like you can't spend too long in one world without getting a little exhausted with it. No matter how
I need to
good
bounce
it
around.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, where's the fire in the end? I don't feel like Wheel of Time books are the kind that like a Malazan where like if you take a 6-month break, you're gonna forget everything. I don't feel like that's gonna happen really. There's an overabundance of characters, sure. But the thing is with Wheel of Time is you can latch on to who the characters you need to remember are. I think you're
Right.
never gonna just be like, this character is so important. Why do I not know who they are? There will be some times we will have a plot with someone and be like, I'm not familiar, I don't recall, but
Right.
never in a way where you're like, oh, who the hell is this? So I feel like it is a series that you should take 2 years to read or something and fill in other things with it. Because again, in the end, where's the fire? And just as long as there are parts of the series that are slower. There's important character stuff in there, though. So I feel like knowing it going in, and I always tell Wheel of Time fans, stop it. All you're doing is chasing people off when they first start reading it. You're like,
it's happened to me.
It's the best series of all time, but books 7 through 10 suck. Stop telling them that.
Yeah.
It makes them not want to put in the investment. Stop saying it. So there are parts where it will slow down, and you do feel like, okay, maybe they could have trimmed the fat there. But I think knowing that will probably help you get through that a little easier. But yes, take your time, read other stuff in between it. It'll still be there.
Do you think the slog is blown out of proportion then? Is that fair to say?
There
a little bit?
I think what I told people was like, everybody told me how terrible book 10 was. Like, you didn't tell me book 9 was this bad. But it was
Right.
it is slower, and it's a thing that you can say, yes, this slog thing is very real. He should have not married his editor, so they would have actually told him, yeah, you gotta chop this up a little bit, Robert. I think that probably would have helped. But again, if you don't try to speed run it, I don't think it'll be a problem. You guys feel like, it's, hey, cool. Maybe the next one will be more exciting. But like I said, there is important character stuff in there that you can't just skip them.
Yeah. This is one series that I've been on the fence about doing as a buddy read, as a group. I've had several groups, several friends that have gone on that journey, and I've almost joined a few times. Is that one that's good as a buddy read? Should I take time and do that on my own?
I definitely think when I first really had started my Discord, they started doing like a group read. They did one book per month, for because they even did the prequel books, so for 15 straight months, and I still would contribute to they would have like their Zoom call and stuff and talk about each book, and that was a lot of fun for me as someone who'd already read it. So
Sweet. Okay.
It's definitely really good if you have a community, especially if they're reading for the first time, because you'll have the people. That's the thing is with wheelies, you understand they're very excited when people are reading their favorite fantasy story, and they'll want to enjoy that journey. I mean, that's kind of where my channel got its wings at first. They want to see someone else going through that for the first time, but they get a little overzealous and they just want to talk to you about things that haven't happened yet.
Right? Of course.
And that's the cycle. Like if you say you read book one, you're like, oh, I don't really like Egwene though. They're like, oh, well, just wait till book blank, buddy. And it's like, that doesn't help me, because now I know this character lives till book whatever, and it just
true.
They'll get a little like that, and they'll get. And I always joke that wheelies are the nicest people in the world, and they will tell you books 7 through 10 aren't that good, but once you get to book 7 or 8 or 9, and you start having criticisms, they'll turn on you. Because it's like it's like my little brother. I can pick on him, but you can't. They do kind of feel like that, so they are kind of overprotective. So it's a double-edged sword there. So it's good to have first-time readers. I think it's a blast to have that kind of community with you, because there's lots of stuff you can theory craft with those books.
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, that'll be interesting, because it's one that I've had that itch to read for. So, where do you stand on buddy reads in general? Do you like them?
I think they're cool.
Buddy reads,
nice
read-alongs.
It's nice to have someone to talk to about the books.
Yeah.
The thing is, the problem I started having with it is I can't audio, like I've said, and let's be honest, it takes a lot longer to read than it does to listen. Up. Yeah. So someone would say, hey, wait for me. We'll buddy read that book, and I would like message them, 2 days later. I'm like, hey, I'm on chapter 8. I'm really enjoying this so far. They're like, oh, well, I'm done.
It happens to me too.
And then they don't talk to you about it. All they do is like, you'll be talking about what's happening, and they just like give you a thumbs up emoji or a fire emoji. It's like, this isn't a buddy read. You're just reacting to something that you already. So I don't want to tell them, like, you can't listen to audio. You have to read it with me. That's just kind of why I stopped doing it, really. But it's nice to have people to talk to that are, doing the same speed as you.
Have you ever done a buddy read where you guys split it up into like chapters and say like, hey, let's read to this point, like a book club, right? Yeah,
we did that with Malazan at the beginning. We had that part where, and then it was like all those people were like, well, I can't wait. I got to read ahead, and so it just became a mess.
It's tough
when you try to do that. But like my very, very first buddy read was for Rage of Dragons, and we just split that into chapters like that, and that was a lot of fun doing it that way. But
I just picked up Rage of Dragons. Did you like that?
Come out. I liked it a lot. It's just he put out those first 2 books in like a couple years, and now it's been like 4 years, and we ain't even had. I know. What's going on?
I'm waiting for the release date of the 3rd, and then maybe I'll run through the first 2. I don't know.
It's smart. And I talked with Christopher and Ryan about this. Like, how many people do you tell you, they are going to start your series because it's not complete? And they're like, all the time. Yeah. It's just, we live in a post Patrick Rothfuss, George R. Martin world where fantasy readers are scared to get into anything that isn't complete. And I think you look at a writer like Ryan or a Christopher, see, these guys are putting out books this thick once a year. I don't think you'd be worried about them. Same with Brandon Sanderson. That's why I'll start Stormlight Archive. I know this guy writes fast enough that I'm not worried about it. He's dedicated enough to finish it. But yeah, I won't lie. A lot of times I'll say I am going to wait for the series to be complete because I have all these other series that are already complete.
Yeah,
and I want
you have to prioritize somehow, right? You only have so much time.
Like I didn't read Greenbone Saga until it was complete, but I bought each one of those books as they came out. And it worked out. And I know that it's a leap of faith because you don't know if you're going to like them or not. But I feel like I can justify my saying I'm going to wait for that series to be complete when I'm still supporting the author.
Well, how about the leap of faith where you buy a book and then they change everything up? The Will of the Many was one of my favorite books of the year, probably one of my favorite books of all time. I love that series. I can't wait for the rest of it. And all of a sudden they're changing the cover art, they're changing everything. And it's one of the few hardcovers I went out and I bought and I read immediately, right? And I was like, God damn, like, you can't win, right?
I
Do I wait
understood
for
like they made the special edition with broken binding, but why change the
that?
original art? It's weird.
What? Yeah, I don't know. So it's funny, and even series like I remember a Petrick video about the Dandelion Dynasty. So like the fourth book, all of a sudden the spine's different, the name is in the wrong place. The fourth and final book, all of a sudden it's different, and we've invested in these books the whole time. So it's like it's
That's why
annoying.
even with a lot of ongoing series, I was like, I'm going to buy them on digital, and I'm going to
Yeah.
wait and show me that you're going to make your series match before.
Yep.
That's just a collector thing for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, publishers have no idea what book collectors are like. They have no idea that we care so much about these things.
What was the one where you were trying to get the matching set? Was it the Ken Follett books, and you kept getting the wrong one?
Yeah, I got what it was the wrong size.
Yeah,
it's happened more than once, honestly. Like I
Yeah.
remember back. It's funny because I can't stand the series now. But at the time when I first started the channel, I was reading Lightbringer by Brent Weeks, and they have so many different versions of those because some would have like a little blast of color with the book number on it, and then
right.
they wouldn't you get the wrong edition, they wouldn't line up, and it was like so frustrating.
Are you a little OCD that way? Like, does that bug you? Your
Definitely.
personality type? Yeah,
Absolutely.
me too. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many series that I have right now where I'm looking at, and I'm like, why does one book not match the rest of them? Like Dresden Files would all match except Ghost Story Solid White. All the others were
Really?
black. Yeah.
Okay. It's funny that you say that because I think we've both been sent copies of a series, another indie priority series that I want to read. Michael Schultheis, what is it called? Roast of All series.
Okay.
And the final book, and I don't know if this was deliberate, and I believe it's 5 books because that's how many I have, and I feel like it's complete. The final book is black, so like the first 4 are like a beige white, and the last one's black. And I thought at first I was like, what the hell is this? Like, what happened? Then I thought that was actually kind of cool because it's kind of cool to see almost the conclusion being a different, like something that stands out. So to me, it can be kind of a cool, deliberate, artsy, whatever. But if like a random book is different, or if the first one is one way and then the rest of them follow a completely different scheme for no reason, if it's not deliberate, that bothers me for sure.
That's why I love broken binding, because not only their spines match, sometimes you can take that off the dust. Look at that. The naked hardcover matches, hey, look at that. The painted edges match. So I feel like broken binding is, for nerds by nerds, because they understand why that matters so much to us.
The worst thing that's happened to me was was it earlier this year? I can't remember. Very early in the year, I got an email from Broken Binding that my waitlist slot had come up.
Nice.
And I missed the email. And so now I've been on the wait list for months and months. Now, the shipping and the thing, and you know what I mean, shipping to Canada, like it's expensive. And so I had to put some thought into if I would do it. But I've been waiting, and it's just, oh man, every time I see those Broken Binding editions, they're just some of the best. Like they're just the best for sure. You have a lot of them now, hey? Lucky.
I am still just like overwhelmed
so nice.
with anything they send me. I'm just like, wow, thank you so much, because the shipping alone killed.
It's
killed
crazy.
Me in the States. It's not, which I understand. Shipping's not cheap. I don't expect them to like fit the bill for that. But anything Matt sends me is just like, thank you so much. And he's all the time he's like, you don't have to thank me after everything you get. Like, yes, I do. Like, you don't know how much I appreciate it, because you don't have to do this.
We love it.
Selling stuff fine without my help. Your wait list is so long, you'll probably never be able to fill it. So the fact they sent me anything is just wow. And same with Folio Society, sent me a couple of things now. So that canonical for Leibowitz that they sent me is $600. Folio Society, $600.
Wow.
And I had no idea it was that much until Christopher told me. I was like, really? It really costs that much? He's like, yeah, because I won it. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It's like, oh shit. I had no idea it cost that much. That's nuts, right?
That's funny. And you know what's funny? I messaged Broken Binding too, because I was curious about the tier 1. Like I was just like, hey, like, how does that like work? And they were like, yeah, the wait list for the tier, which is the tier 1 is I think you get the signed and numbered copy, whatever. He's like, yeah, the wait list is like a decade long or something right now. So I was like, and of course, obviously they extrapolate that and they figure out that in some sort of way. But basically, it's like, don't think about it.
I think the thing with that was, I think that Broken Binding it got too big too fast. Like Matt never expected it to take off like it had. And
Yeah.
to me, it was just like, I don't know why it took so long for them to realize that book collectors love special editions, and why it took someone so long to prioritize just special editions.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously a huge market for it. I was like, Matt, you need to expand. You need to put an office in the States, put an office in
Yes.
Canada, put offices all over the
100%.
world. It's like, this isn't going away. Because
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people be like, oh, print is dying. It's like, not as long as there's book collectors out there, it's not dying, and they will pay for those special editions, no problem.
It's really funny because you know, you're a little older. I'm sort of straddling that generation, the millennial generation. I'm a little bit kind of old school in some ways too. And I feel like there's a resurgence in the nostalgic, tangible, hardcover, leather bound, like, just, you know what I mean? Like, for a long time, yeah, we were going very digital, very, very whatever. Now there's almost a resurgence of like, no, like, I want the special illustrated leather bound, blah, blah, blah on my shelf, just like the libraries of old, right? Like, that's what people want now.
I think it's kind of the same thing like we did with cell phones. Cell phones were huge for a long time. It just seemed like they kept making them smaller and smaller and smaller. And now they're making them massive again.
Yep.
So I was like, I feel like it's kind of the same way with books. It's like, we're like, oh, I love the idea that I can fit my entire library on this. It's so cool. But then you go to like a signing or something like that, and you get a book signed, you're holding that book in your hand, you're like, well, I actually feel like I have something really, really special here. And so it's like, you don't realize what you got till it's gone, kind of thing. I feel like there's a lot of people that
absolutely
I'm going to
true.
go all digital for the convenience of it, and they're like, but I kind of really miss being able to hold that product in my hand, and that's why I still refuse to buy digital video games. So,
I'm in. Well, I had to get a digital PS5 because they couldn't find one with the so.
Right,
it is what it is. But I was going to make the joke that this can be their Canadian office. It's free right here. No rent, no nothing, no lease. Just stack them up.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, I don't know. Look, it's like, I feel like I know enough about business for some parts, but when it comes to like telling him to expand and make a franchise out of it, that's probably a lot more. You need more expertise than me just saying you should do that, But I think
exactly.
I definitely think there is prospects for it for sure.
Do you think it's kind of a double-edged sword with the special edition stuff, where it's almost to the detriment of the I don't want to say mass market, but just the market hardcovers and stuff and whatever? Like, do you think it's at the detriment? For example, someone might not want to go out and buy a series or a paperback, hardcover, whatever, because they think there might be a special edition, or they're holding out on a special edition, and maybe they're focused on that more than going out and buying the book and supporting right away. Like,
we joked before we started this about how can you ever have enough copies of Dune? I think that with now is you're seeing there's so many special editions. And I blame Jay Kristoff for this, and I told Jay that I blame him for this because he put out like 19 different
so many different covers and shit. Yeah.
And like, I've had a lot of people this weekend, they were like, I had to make the decision between doing Christopher's Kickstarter edition of Sun Eater or doing the Broken Binding edition, because I can't do both. And it's like, he's like, I completely understand that. He's like, but they're also like, but I'm also a collector. I want both, so it's gonna be a problem. So I don't necessarily know that there might be a special edition of it, but I won't lie. There are some things where I spent probably way too much money to get something to match hardcovers or something like that. And then I see like a special edition coming out. I'm like, so I can see that. Like, I spent a lot trying to get Endymion, which is the sequel series to Hyperion, and this matching omnibus edition. Mm-hmm. And now I know that Broken Binding is eventually going to be doing those. I'm like, I would rather just spend my money on that, because they're going to be beautiful,
Right. Right.
So I get that, but also if you're waiting sometimes, and you might just be waiting forever. So
yes,
I don't know.
You might not get what you want. Yep. What if there was a really beautiful special edition of ACOTAR? How much would we have to pay you to read A Court of Thorns and Roses?
It's so funny about that is I told my wife a while back, it was during the superhero movie boom. I grew up my whole life wanting to make these superhero movies. And so when they all came out, my wife went with me to see all of them and stuff. And I just told her, like, around like 2015, 2016, I was like, look, you have went with me without complaining to every Star Wars movie, every superhero movie, every James Bond movie. And you've never complained about it. If you want me to go see Magic Mike with you, I will. I was like, I will do that with you if that's what you want. She was like, no, honey, I want to watch that without you. I was like, oh, I get it. Anyway.
Say no more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I told her one time they always have all their great sales on Kindle. And one time they had Throne of Glass, which is Sarah J. Maas. And
Yep.
so I bought it for her. It was
Yep.
like all 7 books for like $5. I was like, look,
Oh,
my
you
wife,
got it. Why not?
yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, she loves fantasy. She loves smut. I was like, this is perfect. This would be exactly what she's looking for. And she's like, I don't want to read that shit. So I tell her all the time, you've read
Really?
all these fantasy books I want you to read. You've read Stephen King. You've read Joe Abercrombie. You know, you're reading Christopher Ryan right now. It's like, you've read all this
Wow.
stuff. If you want me to read Sarah J. Maas with you, I will. So I tell
I'll
her,
do it.
you hold the keys. You hold the keys. If you would rather do Akatar, I'll do Akatar. So I was like, if you want me to read Sarah J. Maas, I will do it when you do it. I read Lee Bardugo just for the laughs. Okay. So I'm not scared.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm not
I
scared.
liked
I might
Six
like
of
it.
Crows. Six of Crows I enjoyed. I didn't read the Shadow and Bone or whatever that
You
one is,
lucked
but I
out.
did like Six of Crows.
Here's
So,
a shocking revelation for you, Theo. Those books weren't written for us. They really weren't. And I
I
knew
know,
that going
I
in.
know.
I knew that going in. But I've heard Six of Crows are very good. In fact, the Netflix show, I like the Six of Crows stuff way better than the Shadow and
Yeah.
Bone stuff.
I think actually you'd like Six of Crows. You know,
I heard.
it might not be your jam, but I feel if you're comparing the two, that is very much the one that I would have recommended you start with for sure.
I
Yeah.
told my wife, I was like, the Akatar content on the channel would be hilarious either way. So sure.
So I read Akatar last month. I think last
yeah?
month, the month before. I did the first book.
Did you get in touch with your feminine side, or?
You know, it's funny because my wife tried to read it because we had some friends. I have a couple friends that I respect and that I, you know, like I trust their taste and stuff, and they're women, and they actually really, really enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, well, like how bad could it be, right? How not for me could it be, right? I was just curious, and my wife tried it. She did not like it. She's like, dude, it's terrible. So I tried it, and there's a lot of criticism for sure. It wasn't great, but there were moments that I was like, okay, I understand why this works for people. And apparently, book 2 and 3 then really pick up. They actually get better in quality, and that's where the stuff starts kicking in that people gush over. But I was interested the whole time. I flew through it. I'm
I tell
curious
people
about
all
book
the time,
2.
I was raised by a single mom, so I was like, I know more about rom-coms than I probably should. I've watched soap operas and stuff, so I feel like I could do this. And they're like, no, dude, it's a whole different level of shit. Trust me. Okay.
It's just, yeah. And honestly, I think it's funny because it's one of those things where it depends how versed you are in fantasy and how much of a reader you are, because there are things that an avid reader will pull out and go, that shouldn't happen, or that shouldn't have been written that way, or that. But if you're not really used to it, you might just think, okay, you might just gloss over it. There were decisions that the characters made or conveniences in the plot that would just like make you want to cry. Like, why did this happen? But if you don't read a lot, and you can't compare, right, then it's probably fine. But it did its job. I enjoyed it, and I'm kind of curious about book 2, and I got it on the Kindle. So what more do you want from a book, right?
Well, guys like us may joke about it, but as someone who spent a lot of time in bookstores for signings over the weekend, I can tell you,
Yeah,
it's the Swifties. It's basically the Swifties with the fantasy genre. Romantasy is taking over. Like those stores, you go look at this wall and all these books. They all looked almost exactly the same. They all had like almost identical something and roses or something, like everything. Yeah. They were selling. Like
it's a whole subgenre. And you know what's crazy? I went to the bookstore
at the Barnes and Noble here in the Woodlands, and like, we can't keep them on the shelves. Like, we literally,
it's crazy.
Cannot. It's like wild. And I'm just like, that's why you are seeing so much self-published with traditional fantasies, because publishers aren't buying that stuff up anymore. They don't want Dragon Rider fantasy anymore unless you got a love triangle.
Oh, the love triangle. Oh my God. Yeah. It's funny. I went to the bookstore not that long ago, and I actually took a video because it was shocking. It was like, you know, there's a couple shelves of fantasy, and in this particular bookstore, it wasn't a huge section, but it was a couple, you know, probably the same amount that maybe you have on that back wall, and 5 shelves of it, 5 levels were all Sarah J. Maas. And I couldn't believe it. It was such a big chunk of their entire section. I could not believe it.
So sometimes I'll see like a booktuber pop up that I've never heard of, and I'm like, this girl has 650,000 subscribers who I've not heard of. Oh, she's a Romantasy channel. That's why.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And
at least
somebody mentioned that Tudor Ramble. Tudor Ramble has tons of Avatar stuff. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
It is hilarious. Yeah.
When I was
I've started watching them
I was
recently.
like, well, we talked about Sarah J. Maas way more than I was expecting. You know?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. What else did I want to ask you? I'm just thinking, it's funny. We were talking about kids before, and this is kind of just off topic a little bit, but I'm like looking around and I'm like, fuck, like if we have a kid, this office is gone. Like we don't have a whole lot of space. We live in Vancouver. Like
it's the only room in the house. It's mine.
what do you do? You must be running out of space, man. Like, are they sitting by your feet? Like,
Oh,
where are the
I
books
tell people
going?
all the time, and like when Christopher was here recently, he saw it and he laughed. I was like, this. When people are like, where do you put all? I know my closet just stacks and
It's
stacks
like
and stacks.
Fallout.
He's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, yeah. So we have big closets here. But I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, it's like there's a reason that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bookcases, and you guys see 4 on camera because
Yeah.
it's a mess everywhere else. It really is.
Yeah.
But as far as like this, it's just tell my kids, right? You guys don't have any interest in books. There ain't no reason for you to be in here. Get out of here. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just
Be
one room
scared of the
that
books.
they
Yeah.
have to go into.
I saw somebody made a comment that they buy more ebooks these days, and then if they like it, they'll buy the hardcover or the whatever. I'm
Probably
sort of
makes more sense.
I'm doing that too. I'm reading a lot on my Kindle, and then if I like something, I'll go out and buy them and put them on the shelf. And I'm
And
starting to clean up my collection that way.
this might be more my digital only ranting. I think I would
Yeah.
do that more if they didn't charge the same price for the freaking ebook as they do the physical book. That makes no sense. I
There was
understand.
one.
Look, I work in business. If people are willing to pay that, I understand it. Do it. But it's just like I would do it. If the ebook was $7.99 and the physical book was $12.99, I'd buy more of
Yeah.
the ebooks. I would. And if I like
I'm
it,
reading right now. I'm reading the Measure, which I would recommend. It's pretty thought provoking, good idea book, right? Everyone gets a box randomly, and there's a string inside it, and people find out that it's the length of your life,
Oh wow.
and it really steers people's decisions and things, and pandemonium happen. It's crazy, and it's very thought provoking. But this is a situation where like the physical was like $23 or $25 or something, and the Kindle was like $18. Like, why wouldn't I just buy the thing? It's,
Pay a few
and there's
bucks
been
more and have
yeah.
something physical in your hand. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I would buy a lot more if, like you said, if the Kindle was now, I think I don't know if it was you. I saw a couple videos. Maybe you were talking to authors like Rockio and stuff, where they really talked about how the publishing industry works a little bit, and how they don't set the prices are, it's not the value that you put into the digital, because you think, well, it's a digital copy, you should just be able to float it around and make a couple bucks, but that's not really where the price comes from.
Yeah, no,
it's whatever. It's exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Only get audio or ebooks if they're free. Yeah. You know what's crazy? There are some times where if something's cheap enough, like I'll have the hardcover, I'll have the ebook, I'll have the audiobook, and I'll kind of bounce around between formats as I read and stuff. So I do that a lot too. But
it's hard to buy a lot of ebooks of books I already own, just because, like I said, it's much easier to read in bed without a lamp on, because I keep my wife up if I read with a lamp on. So I'll just get it on my Kindle. And also, like I always say, if you fall asleep, like I tend to fall, I'm the I got to finish this chapter guy when I'm reading, and I might fall asleep. And this feels much better hitting your face than a Stephen King book. Trust me.
Totally. And you know what's funny is I like hardcovers, and I like them on the shelf, as I think you do too. But when it comes to the fatties, right? I like the paperbacks because they're floppy, they sit on you nice. If you drop them, you don't knock yourself out. These in hardcover are crazy. Like, it's, you know what I mean? As a standard edition.
Yes. Mass market paperback, no, because I'll always crack this. But I like the paperbacks, the trade paperbacks. You can open them all the way and the spine don't crack. I love that. I hate cracked spines. Hate it.
I do too. My wife and I argue about that because she doesn't care. She's just I'll let her borrow a book, and I'm like, oh, like, don't damage it. She's like, this is what books are for. They're meant to be read and cracked, and some people see that as a sign of enjoyment. Yeah. I just can't. And she's like, and she makes fun of me because like I'll be reading a book and I'll have it open like 2 inches, right? And I'll just be like looking in the cracks and stuff, trying to read it. And she's like, why don't you open it, man? Like, what's wrong with you?
That was me with the Dresden Files books. I didn't want to crack none of the spines. My wife was just laughing at me because I'm like, while I'm reading it.
Those Dresden books are the worst format I've ever seen. The sizes are weird. Like, not like you said, one of them doesn't match. They're weird.
It's like they're
tall,
not quite
skinny.
trade, but they're not quite mass market. I don't know. There's some weird, unique shape. Yeah, it's really
bizarre.
Strange.
Yeah. You were talking about Worldcon, and we've always joked about the idea of like a Booktube con and like traveling and meeting up and stuff. And a bunch of us wanted to get together and kind of do like a Mike's book reviews thing, and like all kind of travel and get together and stuff.
Don't put it in my name. Just a Booktube.
The Mike con. Have you ever, like, are you planning on doing some stuff? Are you planning on traveling some, like, here and there for some conventions?
I won't lie, man. This past week was like so overwhelming because I've never ever experienced anything before. Like, so many people coming up telling me how important my channel was to them and stuff, and it blew me away. and everyone was so nice. And I was like, this is just
Yeah.
incredible. Like one kid told me that like I'm the reason he stopped drinking and stuff. And he got sober.
Oh,
And I mean, that almost moved me to
wow.
tears. It was so powerful. So, I mean, it was an amazing weekend. I was like, I would love to do something like this. I joked recently, like Patrick went to Worldcon, like everyone. He was like a celebrity there. And I was like,
Totally.
I want to
Man.
believe
He's
I
signing
would be known
autographs and
as-
shit.
I was like, I have people asking me for my autographs at this. It was wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I want to believe that I would be as popular as Patrick there, but people would probably be like, what is it you say you do again? But after this week, I was like, I don't know. I guess I've got a bigger footprint than I thought I did.
Oh, absolutely.
And
You do, for sure.
It was really cool. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'd love to do something like that, but I was like, I don't want to coordinate it because coordinating a convention sounds like a nightmare.
It
Sounds
does.
like a
It
nightmare.
does.
But
Yeah.
if there is like a booktube con or something like that, I'd love to go there. I would definitely like to go. Yeah.
Do you get just in your daily life when you drive down the street and you go to a bookstore or whatever, like do you get recognized and shit now? Like
It's happened once.
a couple times?
It's happened one time. And it's what I tell people is like, you got to realize that like most of my viewers are outside of the city.
All over the place. Yeah. Yeah.
So in fact, it's like rare when I have one. It's like, hey, I'm from Houston too. And so that's why I was like, I was so surprised at this because I moderated all these panels, is how many people knew me. And like Christopher even, it was hilarious one time before when we peeked our head out to see how many people were there. And a couple people were like, Mike, and they were just like started talking to me, whatever. And they'd look at Christopher and go, oh, you're here too.
That's so funny. Oh, you write books. Amazing.
Yeah. It was interesting, but it's happened one time here. And it was so funny because they had a section at Books A Million called Book Talk, which I don't do.
Right.
And I had someone actually
don't know how
notice me, recognize me there, and want to take my picture. And my youngest kid was like, are you famous? I was like, I don't think so. So it was pretty cool. And they actually went to the Christopher came here to Houston to do his last bit on his deal, and I went up there and moderated that. And my kids came up because they just like wanted to see it, and like my old enough to think it's a flex where you can be like, yeah, my dad's a YouTuber, or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. I was
just blown away that so many people knew me.
Yeah, like I was reading this thing where like young kids now, like the biggest, like the most aspired to career or whatever is like a YouTuber. Like kids just want to be YouTubers and shit. So like your kids must think it's awesome.
Well, I remember when I went to when my oldest was still in elementary school, and you could come up there like for the Christmas party or something like that. And I came up there, and it was like basically like, what does your parent do? He didn't mention anything about finance. He told them I'm a YouTuber, and they thought it was awesome.
I bet. Yeah. By the way, I have this other job where like I pay the mortgage and shit. But
where
I also do this.
Bills?
Yeah. That's what does your wife think about it? Because now, I mean, you got the plaque. You're growing steadily. When you first started, did she think it was weird to flip on a camera and assume people would?
Because I did podcasting for a while, and I kind of stepped away from it. And you can see how that feels like you're kind of neglecting some things with the family. And when I started doing this, and it actually was seeing success, she was kind of like, you really got another thing that you're going to be doing more than that. It's going to take you away and stuff like that. Until she started seeing some of the messages about how positive of an impact it was having on people. And then she was for it. But I really think she was proud and she was excited for me and stuff. But I think coming with me to these 3 signings that we did and then just seeing what I saw, I think she was just kind of just like blown away as well by like, just like, wow, what you're doing actually kind of makes a difference for some people. And that's awesome.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Maybe we'll start to wrap. I want to give you a little bit of your Saturday back, but why don't we end with what the plan is for the channel? I know you talk a little bit, you give us snippets and stuff about, the metrics and stuff, whatever. And I know that you don't really focus on too much anymore. You kind of just letting the channel grow, but what's the plan? Do you see, are you going to continue doing this for as long as it's fun? Are you like, what's the deal?
The way I look at it is I'm never going to stop reading. So I don't see that. I mean, there's a chance that one day YouTube might wake up and be mad and demonetize me for something. I don't know.
Right.
It seems like they changed their terms of service so much. It could have been like, hey, that one time you sneezed on camera, that's no longer allowed. The way I look at it, I feel like the tech bubble is eventually going to burst, just like everything does eventually. This has went on for a lot longer than I expected, really. So I feel like, as long as it's fun, I'll keep doing that. But like I said, I don't feel like I'm ever going to stop reading. And in the end, I just want people to read more. So if I'm really influencing people to read, I'm going to keep doing it. I might slow down. I might speed up. Who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? Mm-hmm. But I don't see it being anything I ever quit until I'm just like, you know what? I'm too old for that damn computer thing anymore.
Yeah. But then you can just pay people to do all that stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Then you can just,
I mean, I think for me at that point, I think I would just go back to just podcasting, which would be about books. Just go back to podcasting. It's much less work involved doing it that way.
Excuse me.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm just going to kind of, it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm just going to kind of keep rolling with it.
It's true. What's cool is even if you were to step away tomorrow and say, I'm busy, I don't have time, or I'm too old, or you're physically incapable of doing this or whatever, it's really cool because on the platform, you can leave such a legacy, right? And you have so many videos that are still out there. And as long as nothing gets taken down or YouTube doesn't crash or whatever, it's going to be there. And what's really cool is you could stop tomorrow and have this legacy of people coming through, finding the channel, tagging along with all the books that you're reading, going through old wrap-ups and old reviews and stuff. And you probably, if you stop tomorrow, you'd probably still have such an impact going forward with that legacy that it's kind of cool to think about.
It is. Someone actually brought up, it's kind of a dark topic. We're talking about like, hey, if you die tomorrow, is that?
I think about this all the time.
Is it pretty cool that your kids will have all this access to videos of you and feel like you're still a part of their life if they ever get in, and maybe it would inspire them. I think about like if my father had passed away at a young age or something like that, would I have picked up some of his interests? So it's like if that happened and they got an interest in what you're doing, they feel like they would have access to their dad still to be able to go back and watch their videos. And I was like, that's really, really just like, I think so.
I think, hi, Madison. I think about that all the time. And you know what? There's nothing I wouldn't give to watch a bunch of my dad's videos at 35, 40 years old and read some of the books he was talking about. Like, I would love that. So it's a bit of a dark turn, but you can't help but think about that, right? You're putting so much out there. It's going to be there for a long time. So I hope you don't stop anytime soon. I might take another couple breaks, but you should.
With you, I'm about to piss like a racehorse, so I'm gonna have.
Let's do it, man. It's been 2 hours. I just want to thank everybody for being here, Mike. I appreciate you as always, and we'll do it again soon. And there's still more to talk about. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Thanks for hanging out, Mike. I appreciate it. Any last words before you go?
No, man. I just appreciate it. I'm glad we could finally do this.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next video.